And we are live.
That titled intro is pretty cool, but it could do with some music, actually.
We'll work on that. You can,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. You live in Atlanta, so I mean, there's plenty of great
But
artists in
here's
Atlanta.
what's funny that you said that because I'm sorry to interrupt you, but as I said that, I was like, I want to put my boy one of my clients, who's a rapper, could put something together.
See
That's
if
fun.
you can put together a 30-second beat,
Yeah,
intro beat. 30
yeah,
seconds. It doesn't have to be long.
yeah. No, I mean, hell, it doesn't even have to be 30 seconds, like 15.
15 seconds.
Yeah.
Make it sound dramatic. Think about it. What would be some dope like superhero type music? I
I
mean,
don't
I think of
know.
like some Wu Tang stuff, but you know,
That's something that I had to think about when I'm
that's
better
something you really got to
rested.
think about, right?
Yeah, something when I'm better rested.
Yeah, I hear you. How's
So,
your week? You good?
oh yeah, yeah. Super Bowl this weekend, chilling.
You got Super Bowl plans?
You probably just sit up here and eat and chill and watch the game. Hopefully,
Is your TV
did you
big
come to
enough?
my Super Bowl party when we were in law school? I know
Yeah,
Mark was there.
yeah, it
You
was
were there.
infamous.
Say it again.
I said, yeah, it was infamous.
Yeah, yeah, that was cool. That was
That was
that
a
was a good time. That was
that was
that
a
was a good
dope
time.
party, man. I mean, you had a full house.
Yeah, I did. Had a
Like,
professor from law school in there too.
which
Too bad,
professor?
Professor Canova.
I
He
don't
was
know.
my criminal law professor. He was a criminal law professor.
Oh, criminal law professors don't count, dude.
Yeah, so we had everybody from first years to third years. That was a fun time. That was a fun time. So this week, books that came out this week. The first one that I wanted to discuss is Avengers.
53.
Avengers 53. First off, it's this Death Hunter storyline where an alt version of Doctor Doom has compiled a all-star cast of villains, alternate versions of villains, so variants based on Loki, what we would call variants, and have brought them to the 616 universe to attack the Avengers. I guess it's Doctor Doom's Masters of Evil that he's created, and it's a pretty good storyline. This issue 53 was the third part in the story. I don't know how long that story is going to go, but what was notable about it is, and I sent you the picture, and I don't know if you can bring it up and share it and post it or whatever. But as I said, Doctor Doom, in whatever reality he comes from, he's not from the 616. He's not the Victor Von Doom that we always know about. But he is basically the sorcerer supreme or the evil sorcerer supreme of whatever universe that he comes from. He may actually be uh, stronger than Doctor Strange, who I think is dead in the in the comic books. But anyway, he attacks the Avengers, and T'Challa, who's always prepared for everything, suits up basically and covers his body in a bunch of stuff and
A
war.
bunch of stuff. No, slow down, slow down. You can't
I wasn't
underestimate.
finished. Wasn't finished. He
All right.
covers his body in a bunch of stuff. He's got these bands around his hands. He's using technology as well as mysticism to prepare for this fight against alt version of Doctor Doom. One of the things that he did was he coated his suit in, I think it was the blood of the Orisha, I think it said. And of course that made his
Let's
suit.
let's 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 take a look at what he exactly did. First of all, here's T'Challa preparing. He's preparing for what's coming, as he says. He's preparing for Doom. Now, understand, Doctor Doom is one of those few people that successfully invaded and conquered Wakanda in Doom War.
But this isn't that Doctor Doom. People need to
I
understand.
understand. I
No, I,
understand.
no,
But
I
but
get you do, but people need
but,
to
but, the, but
understand.
the concept of the animus that Black Panther has for Doctor Doom is fairly significant. Um, there's a mutual respect there between the two of them as monarchs. It's really kind of a trifecta between Doctor Doom, T'Challa, and Namor. those guys, in essence, T'Challa views himself as the king of the most advanced place on Earth. Doom views himself as the monarch of the Earth, the land.
That's true.
And Namor views himself. He's like, well, I am the king of Atlantis. I'm the king of the seven seas. And guess what? 70% of the Earth is made up of oceans. So if anyone's the monarch of the Earth, it's actually me. I mean, Doom, you can be king of the Earth, which is the air breathers. It's only 30% of the world. The other 70% is mine. So these three guys have a mutual respect for each other, but they have at times always been at each other's throats. So he's since being defeated by Doom, T'Challa's always 5 steps ahead. So he has prepared himself appropriately.
But the thing about this storyline, again, which I like, is that this version of Doctor Doom, and I quite frankly would like to see a mini series of how this Victor Von Doom got all of his powers. I really like the mysticism or whatever. But the Sentinel, what do you call them? Celestial, that the Avengers have made their base out of has been attacked. And it's been attacked by the Masters of Evil, this alt version of the Masters of Evil. You've got Doctor Doom, alt version of Doctor Doom. You've got the Red Skull, who has got
the Black Skull.
Black Skull, who's got the Red Skull, who's got a symbiote attached to him, but he goes by the Black Skull. You've got basically a teenage version of Thanos. There's somebody else. I can't remember who it is.
A teenage version of Thanos that somehow is much more dangerous.
Yeah. Much more impetuous, not as calculating. It doesn't seem as the quote unquote real Thanos. But and I can't remember who the other member of their cabal is. But they attack the Celestial where the Avengers have their base. And as the attacks are going on, T'Challa secludes himself and gets ready for battle. And as you can see in the image that's up on the screen, T'Challa, the Black Panther, is now the Red Panther. And one of the things that he did was he covered his body in, I think it was the blood of the Orisha is what it said.
It says it right here. It says, thrice blessed vibranium Dambe boxing cords. That's these cords that are around his forearms and fist. Stones from the Wakandan necropolis. That is the city of the dead in Wakanda. Armor of metallicized Orisha blood. So he's got metallicized blood of the ancient gods of Africa. And anti-magic defense protocols. This is what he calls this whole setup. His Red Panther setup is anti-magic defense protocols. Because Wakanda has science down packed. But Doom is more than science. Doom is science and magic. When T'Challa fought Doom in Doom War, he actually had to create a new form of battle that he labeled shadow science, I believe, or shadow sorcery.
Something
In essence,
like
it was the merging of science and mysticism. He had to go to Wakanda's sorcerer supreme. I think he's called not Zawadi, Zambavi, something with a Z. Someone in the chat, feel free to tell me. But Wakanda's sorcerer to help him come up with a new form of battle so that he could battle Doom on both levels, both science and mysticism. And this suit, this anti-magic defense protocols, is an extension of that.
And then in the very next panel, he calls himself the Red Panther.
Red Panther's now activated.
Now here's what's cool about this. If you go back, scroll back up, Paul, to the image right there. No. Go back to the outfit he's got on. Yeah, right there. Now, when I read this and when I saw this, and I immediately chuckled to myself, is that most of you, whoever's watching, knows that Priest, what's his name, Christopher Priest, had a very seminal run on Black Panther in volume number 3, I believe it was. And after he left Marvel, he's bounced around. He was kind of out of comics for a while, but in the 2000s, within the past 3 or 4 years, he was over at DC, specifically at Deathstroke, who is one of my top five comic book characters. Love Deathstroke. And in Deathstroke, he created this character who was an African king who went by the name of the Red Lion. And it was pretty funny because the Red Lion over in DC, which was obviously a play on the Black Panther, looks just like T'Challa does right here, with the minor exception of missing a lion's mane around his collar and
He had
cowl.
fur around his
Yeah,
collar.
fur, right, exactly. Imagine the way oh,
Oh,
what's
H and H Comics corrected. Zawavari was the name of the sorcerer. Thank you.
okay. What's not not Killmonger, kill not Kill Raven. Who's the guy who's always hunting Spider-Man?
Craven.
Craven the Hunter. So basically, you know how Craven's got the fur going on? That's kind of what Red Lion looks like over in DC. So yeah, some Facebook user says I'm really enjoying this arc and I can't wait for T'Challa and King Killmonger to get it on. Yes, King Killmonger is another member of the cabal that Doctor Doom has put together.
Yeah, he's took it. What's that armor he has on
Yeah, was it
from
like
Asgard?
the Destroyer? He's got like the Destroyer armor or
Right.
something like that. He didn't pop up in this book, I don't think. In
No,
this
that was in a
issue.
previous issue.
Yeah. But for me, this was a pretty notable book. T'Challa is very face forward in this book, and by that I mean he is featured heavily in the book, and because of his importance in the Marvel comic book continuity, aka Marvel 616, it is imperative to me that the role of T'Challa be recast and that we save T'Challa in the MCU. T'Challa in the MCU is not dead. A phenomenal actor, Chadwick Boseman, God rest his soul, is. T'Challa is not, and the role needs to be recast.
You need to get one of those recast T'Challa shirts. You won't have to say
I
that.
mean, I may just go and get one made, at some point. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about with that book. This storyline, I really liked the Khonshu storyline too. I know a lot of people didn't, but the one with Moon Knight,
Yeah.
who that was a good storyline. I really liked it. I don't read Moon Knight normally, but I like that story. But I like this one too. I like this one more than I like that other one. But it's pretty good. It's pretty good. What else
What
did
else
you
you
read?
got?
Well, I got a lot. You go. What else did you read?
What? Okay. Well, I mean, mine is a bit.
Because I told you.
I have. I mean, you and I discussed the books that came out this
Right,
past.
right, right. So talk about one of those.
Um,
We'll go back and forth.
I'm going to actually talk about some older books because I've really gotten to the point where my collection is so vast that you never spend time going back and reading stuff that you read in the past. And there's so much gold when you go back and read things and you get to look at things in a different light. So, what I want to talk about, there was an announcement made um, this week, a few days ago, if not yesterday, that an actress has been cast to play Bast in Thor: Love and Thunder. Now, I have some reservations on that because Thor and Love and Thunder is directed by Taiki Waititi, who's a brilliant director. Um, is a lot more on the humorous side. It's probably the last Thor movie. It was probably one of the funniest Marvel
Great
movies
movie.
ever
Great
made.
movie.
I love that movie. That's the best Thor movie I've ever saw. Was the last Thor movie.
Yes. The first two
Um,
sucked.
what was it called again?
Thor, Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok.
Ragnarok. Right, Thor Ragnarok. Best Thor movie. Actually, one of the better Marvel movies, just all around. I
Top
love
10.
that film. I never get tired of watching that movie. Taiki Waititi is just brilliantly funny. But that's what gives me a little trepidation. For her introduction, I hope there is a degree of reverence there and they don't make it too comedic.
Let me
Kind
just
of.
let me just interject here in reference to that. For those who don't know, as Paul just said, there's going to be a new Thor movie coming out this year or next, whenever it is. It's called Thor. What is it called again? Thor
Love and Thunder.
Love and Thunder. Basically, it
Oh,
introduces
shout out to my boy Otis. What's up, man?
it basically introduces a character who's played by Christian Bale, aka Batman. I think the character's name is Gore the God Killer. And in the Thor comic book, I don't remember which volume it was, but in the Thor comic book, there was this guy who basically went around and killing whole pantheons. So just imagine the Olympians getting wiped out. Okay, just imagine the Asgardians getting wiped out. And they are wiped out by this one dude who used to be normal. He was an alien, and by that I mean he's not of Earth. But whatever planet he was from, he became disillusioned with how the gods of his realm and his planet were acting, and he came into possession of this sword. And so he went around and he killed the gods of his planet and went around to different realities, different planets, and killed the pantheons there. So introducing Bast here makes sense because she is a goddess who is a godhead. Well, she's part of a pantheon from Africa. So Gore having beef with her makes sense. So I understand why she would be why she could logically be introduced in that storyline versus a Black Panther storyline. But go ahead.
There was a Thor book I wanted to talk about. I know I posted it in the space, but it talks about, maybe it was the book you were just talking. Do you know what Thor book that was?
Um, it was a volume because you know how they've been.
Wasn't it an annual or something?
No, it was a whole storyline over in a volume, and I'm looking it up right now. Maybe like volume 5 or something like that. I'll tell you.
Oh, that's gonna bother me all day because I just posted that book in the space about the introduction of Shango in the Marvel Universe, the African god.
Now that was in a Thor annual. That was in a Thor annual.
That's like Thor Annual 4, I think.
Hold on.
But that's a dope book because you have the entire pantheon of gods, and I'm not just talking about the Asgardians, because you've got Horus, the Egyptian god, who was introduced in Thor 239 and
Maybe
240.
7. Sorry to interrupt you. Maybe 7. I'm looking
Let,
at.
let me look that up and you talk about it because I know you're an expert on Thor.
Yeah. Oh no. Probably it was either 7 or number 10.
I really think it's
It might be
right.
10 because basically, as Paul was saying, okay, a pantheon is a group of supernatural beings who are led by what we call a sky father. You know, Zeus would be the sky father of the Olympians. Odin is the sky father of the Asgardians. And all of these sky fathers, maybe a sky mother or two, they had a cabal themselves, like an Illuminati, where they would get together and discuss threats and dangers to the realm of Earth. In this one particular storyline, and I want to say it was 10.
It is 10.
Right.
I'm looking at it now.
Yeah. All of them got together because there's this creature, I think his name is Atuma or something along those lines. I think it starts with an A, who was attacking the gods or something. I don't remember the storyline because it's been decades since I've read it. But they all came together to discuss this threat. And so Thor Annual number 10, which came out in like 85 or so, 87 actually.
Yeah, here's the book right here.
Yeah.
It's Thor number 10, Annual number 10.
Right. So I just
Now, if you're one of those spec guys, this is a book that you want to spec on. You know the reason why? Because Thor Love and Thunder has purportedly going to have several gods in it, including, I think, Hercules. They're going to be talking about different gods. And the fact that they've cast somebody as Bast is also indicative of that. One of the things that they've been rumored about the introduction in MCU tremendously has been Nightmare, the god Nightmare. And he's in this book. He is here is what's this guy's name? Mephisto. I said Nightmare. I apologize. I didn't mean Nightmare. I meant Mephisto. Here's Mephisto. He's in the story.
What the story is about is when the earth was first created, there were a bunch of demons. And Gaia, who is the spirit of earth, gave birth to a child who, for whatever reason, or had abilities that allowed him to absorb the energies of demons. And after he absorbed these energies, he flew into the sun, and that's where he resided. But this book, there was some type of threat, and again, I don't remember what it is. He comes from the sun and attacks whatever the threat is. Um, so that's basically where that comes from.
So look at this one page with all these gods on it. You have Tawa, the sun champion of the Pueblo peoples, astride a beam of solid light. So here you have basically the Native American god.
He would be
You've
kind of
got,
like the equivalent of Apollo, probably.
you've got Quetzalcoatl, feathered serpent of the Aztecs, his solar disk thrust forth defiantly. So he's the Aztec god. And then you've got Shango, our dude, the African god. Shango of Africa's Yoruba tribe rolls forward in a black thundercloud. God who rides on a thundercloud. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Then you've got mighty Thor, which we all know, the Norse god of thunder and lightning. You've got Apollo of Olympus on a chariot of sunfire. You've got Indra, thunder, master of the Hindus. So you've got the Hindu god. And then you've got Horus from the let's see, it says Falcon god. So representing Egypt. You got all these gods on one page, and they're all battling in the story. Here's our boy Shango with his staff. So this is a dope book.
There are several different Thor issues that have the appearances of different Sky Fathers combined. There's a storyline where the Celestials were coming back to Earth to judge it. I want to say it was the fourth host. And Odin had called a meeting of the Sky Fathers to determine how they were going to deal with the Celestials, because even though they were Sky Fathers, all of their mystic might may not have been enough to defeat the Celestials. So that was a pretty good storyline as well. But since we're talking about gods and stuff like that,
right. So that's definitely a book you guys want to go pick up if you're interested in that type of thing.
I think that they're saying that lady may be voicing the character of Bast, and there was a picture printed, and it said Bastet, like Baste.
Bastet, yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen that ever. As much Black Panther as I've read, I have never seen that name printed that way ever. So I don't know if that was a typo.
I haven't either. Herschel, I was talking to Herschel about it. Herschel said that he looked at it or researched it, and I guess Bast and Bastet is supposed to mean the same thing. I've never seen that before, but that's what the guy said.
And Marvel 616, I don't think that's ever been said.
So the other book, the book I wanted to talk about, and its part has to do with, you know, the reveal of Bast being in Thor: Love and Thunder, and all the gods and the pantheon of gods are going to be in that film. That's a book, that Thor book that we showed you, is something you probably want to get. But there's an issue during the Priest run. It's volume 3, issue number 21. Let me show it to you here. That issue is when Black Panther has undergone a challenge with Killmonger, and Killmonger won. Killmonger won because Agent Ross is the regent of Wakanda. T'Challa appoints him regent while he's out doing his superhero stuff. And he had distracted T'Challa as he's battling. Agent Ross had distracted T'Challa as he's battling Killmonger. And in that distraction, Killmonger strikes T'Challa, knocks him out cold. He's like comatose, knocked out. And Killmonger is about to do the final blow and kill T'Challa. And Agent Ross steps in and says, "Oh, whoa, hold up. Like, you can't do that. I'm the king. I'm the king regent of Wakanda, so I'm not allowing you. Like, you can't do that. You can't stop the challenge." He goes, "Well, what if I yield?" He goes, and T'Challa, Killmonger's like, "Is that what you want to do? You want to yield on T'Challa's behalf?" He's like, "Yeah, if that'll save his life." He's like, "Fine, I yield." And Zori's like, "No, you can't do that." And he already did it, and that's what made Killmonger become the new Black Panther, and that's at the end of this issue. So for that alone, that's kind of cool. It's the following issue. Sorry, I apologize. It's issue 22, in which I said 21. It's 22, in which he becomes the Black Panther.
As bad
That's
as
kind of
we
cool.
as bad as we think that T'Challa is, and he definitely is, in a lot of the nerd spaces that you and I both belong to on Facebook, they pretty much think that T'Challa single-handedly could defeat a Celestial. But in both the McGregor run
With prep
and,
time, maybe.
the Priest run, T'Challa has had his ass handed to him pretty convincingly by Killmonger. Um,
He got
he
distracted.
may come back and win, but Killmonger has some definitive wins over T'Challa in both the Priest and the McGregor run. And when I say McGregor, I mean Jungle Action. I don't recall whether or not Hudlin dealt with Killmonger or not. I just don't remember. But yeah,
So let me go further about these two issues. So it's issues 21 and 22. You got to have these two issues. There's a Moon Knight series coming out. Moon Knight fascinates me.
he's out right now. It's like on issue 7 or 8.
What? No, I'm talking about the television show. I'm talking about
Sorry. Yeah.
I said it's going to come out. The current run is good. I mean, the last issue, issue 8, you got, as a black collector, you got to have that issue, because it's been revealed that there's another Fist of Khonshu by the name of Hunter's Moon. Um, and Hunter's Moon, this issue 8 is an all Hunter's Moon issue. Mark Spector, the Moon Knight, is in prison during this Dark Reign storyline, and so Hunter's Moon has to take over the Midnight Mission as Moon Knight. So he is now the Moon Knight as Mark Spector's in prison. And so this whole issue has to do with him. And you realize that his powers of Moon Knight are actually quite great. Although they showed Mark Spector kick his ass ultimately when they fought, he does have powers. He has significant power. Anyway, as an aside, what fascinates me about Moon Knight is the fact that he's kind of miscast, right? I mean, Mark Spector is this white Jewish guy who is the avatar of this Egyptian god. So that's always rubbed me the wrong way, which is why I've never really gone full on with Moon Knight. But the backstory, the concept of having an ancient Egyptian god who bestows powers to his avatar that are strongest in the moonlight, that's kind of dope, you know? And so Moon Knight and T'Challa hook up in issue 21. T'Challa is almost dead, right? And um, his spirit is in the astral plane or whatever, because he's almost dead. Moon Knight agrees to help try and save T'Challa's life by going into the astral plane with him to try and go to the land of the dead, beseech Khonshu, god of the moon, to heal him. Now, the reason I point this out, the significance of this. There's a couple cool little things in here. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Brother Voodoo is in this as well. So you got Black Panther, Brother Voodoo, and T'Challa in the same book with Killmonger. And here's where Agent Ross yields, and T'Challa, Killmonger ultimately becomes the new Black Panther as a result of him yielding. So T'Challa is on his way to the spirit realm. And here you have Bast, T'Challa, and Moon Knight in the spirit realm. And the discussion that T'Challa has with Moon Knight is pretty cool. Um, he says, let's see, Khonshu, god of the moon, taker of vengeance, but also the avatar of healing. It's starting to make sense now, right? In my current state, I'm too weak, etc. Khonshu is basically, he's going to Khonshu to restore his link to Bast because he's been disconnected from Bast because he's knocked out, so that he can get his power back and come back to life and heal his body and come back to life. But let's look at this next little discussion he has. And I posted this up in the space, I think yesterday or today. He says, I still don't, this is Moon Knight, I still don't see how this connects to you to your gods, because he's like, Moon Knight is like, Khonshu's my god. He's an Egyptian god. And you guys worship Bast over in Wakanda. Like, what's the connection? I don't understand why you're beseeching my god to heal you so you can connect to your own god. That doesn't make sense to me. And T'Challa explains it. And so he says, as I'm sure you know, the gods of Egypt were largely derived from the ancient gods of Africa. Many of these celestials may in fact be the same being, certainly. Gateways must exist. Now, this is an important point. These gods, these celestials, these pantheon of gods, they may have different names across different cultures, but they're the same god. But depending on your geography, you may call them something else. That's just kind of what T'Challa is pointing out.
As an example, let me just interject. As an example, whenever you're talking about the Greco-Roman gods, you're talking about pretty much the same individuals with different names. For example, Ares and Mars are the same individual. It's just that in Greece, he may be Mars, and in Rome, and for Rome, he's Ares, or however that works out. So that's what Paul is talking about. That's what he means.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Is that based on geography, you have different names, but they're the same God. And this is what T'Challa is pointing out. And so he uses the character of Everett K. Ross to discuss this further, but it's actually Nightmare. And he says, what the king's trying to tell you, Mark, is the quaint notion of the Middle East, notwithstanding, Egypt is in Africa. Remember Richard Burton, Egyptians are black. So this is the point that we talk about all the time. When we talk about these characters in these comic books, and you've got characters like Black Adam, who originally, I believe, was actually Egyptian, and they made Kendak or Kandar, whatever it's called. You've got the Sphinx, the villain, the Sphinx. You've got Apocalypse. You've got all these characters that are sort of these Egyptian characters. They color them funny. They color them like gray, so that you don't really make that link. But this is what Christopher Priest is pointing out. He's like, Egypt is in Africa. Egyptians are black. When you talk about ancient Egypt before the migration of the Arabians, when we're talking about ancient Kemet, before the migration of the Arabians, Egypt was black. That's why when you go to Egypt and you look at the old calligraphy and the pictures, you have black people pictured because that's what they looked like. Nubia actually was more advanced than Egypt at one point. That was all black. And those are, and when you talk about these gods preceded all of that. And so those type of connections really fascinate me. And this book kind of goes into that. And I don't know. I think that's a really dope concept. You ultimately see, they go into the spirit realm and they fight around and stuff, and they get the Panther God Pavilion, and the Panther gods are kind of shown as being slain. They're not really slain though, because it's the Nightmare realm.
But long story short, people should. It's your opinion that people. Well, first off, if you are a Black Panther fan, you should have every issue of every volume. Let's start there. But these two specific issues, in light of the fact of the Moon Knight series, as well as the upcoming Thor movie that's involving pantheons, these two issues specifically that deal with that, along with the Thor annual volume 10, issue 10 would probably be good to have in your collection. Let's talk about something that's more current. Justice League. Since we're talking about annuals, this came out this week. Justice League Annual number 10. It was written by Brian Michael Bendis, who is one of my favorites, and the art is Sanford Green. For those
Sanford Green.
for those who may not know, Sanford Green is the artist on the phenomenal, and it may have been an Eisner Award winner, Bitterroot. The Eisner Award is the equivalent of the Tonys, Grammys, and Oscars for comic books. But Bitterroot, great book. Sanford Green, as most artists do, when you see some work, and you're like, okay, that's in the style of an Alex Ross, or that's in the style of Jim Lee, or whomever out there. Sanford Green obviously has his own style. Now, I've said before in some of these chats, and I'm trying to get better, but I'm not there yet, that when I open a comic book, the last thing I do is try to determine who the creative team is behind it, the writer, the inker, the penciler. I never pay attention to that, hardly ever. But in reading this issue, okay, the first thing that I noticed when I got it, and Paul, you may be able to bring up a picture that better illustrates this, but I saw Wonder Woman on the cover, right? And I'm like, Wonder Woman kind of looks ethnic to her, but you know, as we in the Black community like to say, she looks like she's got something in her. And you know, when you look at those full lips, you look at those cheekbones, I'm like, okay, she doesn't look like the typical, you know, Grecian white chick. She kind of looks like Serena to me a little bit, right? So I that was the first thing that I peeped. So anyway, so I'm reading and I get to the second or third page of dialogue, and it's the fifth one. And it's a group shot of Plastic Man, Aquaman, Flash, etc. And Green Arrow is there, right? I don't know if you can see this. Let's see right there. Can you pull that up somehow, Paul? On your screen?
Let me see what I can do.
So that was a picture of Green Arrow, right? And I'm looking, I'm like, God, why does Green Arrow look familiar to me? So then I'm like, you know what? I go back to the beginning and I see who the creative team, and I see it's Mr. Green. And I'm like, oh, okay, Bitterroot. And basically, Green Arrow looks remarkably like Enoch from Bitterroot. And I actually put a picture of both of them side by side. And, you know, basically one is black, one is white, but they are practically identical. And I just think that that's a funny coincidence, so to speak.
Yeah, if Wonder Woman was colored brown, you would not even blink, because she got kind of a broad nose, full lips,
right?
Kind of sisterly there,
right? She looks like a sister. She does not look like how Diana is typically drawn. I personally don't take any issue with that, but I just thought it was interesting. Also, as a Black comic book collector or a Black comic lord, what's significant about this, other than the fact that Mr. Green was the illustrator, is that Naomi is featured prominently in this book as well. So,
I got a question for the fam. Like, Mark and I basically grew up mostly reading Marvel. We're not DC experts. But Hawkgirl looks kind of ethnic here. I hate that term, but she don't look white, basically.
Shiera Hall.
She what?
Shiera Hall.
What the hell is Shiera Hall?
I'm pretty sure that's her name, Shiera.
Oh, yeah. And the other dude is Carter Hall. Yeah, her name. So, what is her ethnicity? Does anyone know?
She's foreign. Well, she's an alien. She's not human. She's not human. Well, I understand that she's been reincarnated.
The Thanagarians is the whole Hawkman Thanagarian thing is so confusing.
It's convoluted.
It is very convoluted, because you have the story where they're Thanagarians from another planet. You got the story where they're kind of these Egyptians who are reincarnated. It's very confusing.
I think they have always been. They have always been off-world aliens. Okay, they have always been Thanagarians. I think where the waters get muddy probably is due to Justice League and Justice League Unlimited when it added that storyline. Now, as you just articulated, you and we're not deep into the mythology of Hawkman, Hawk Girl, so I don't know what they've done with it in the DC comic books. Um, I know that in the Arrowverse, Hawk Girl, Hawk Woman was played by a black actress.
Right.
Um,
And they had that storyline. They had that storyline. I think it was Legends of
well,
Tomorrow.
I want to say they were introduced in Arrow. I'm pretty sure.
Probably. All right. So let's assume they were definitely in the Arrowverse. And they had the storyline where they showed that Carter Hall and Shahara, what's her name? Shahara?
I think it's Shaira.
Whatever. So she were lovers in ancient Egypt who were slain by this sorcerer.
That was in Justice League.
Was that Justice League?
Oh, no. The sorcerer. That may have been in the Arrowverse, but it kind
it was no, it was definitely in the Arrowverse. I just don't remember which series.
right.
And the sorcerer, cursed them and said, you're going to be reincarnated throughout time. And so they'd always, whatever they'd fight, every generation they'd reconnect with each other. They'd be drawn to each other and reconnected. They'd be in different bodies, so they'd be different ethnicities in every reincarnation. But I find that very, very confusing.
It can be convoluted, but at no point in time do I personally view Hawk Woman, Hawk Girl as a sister. I've always viewed her as an alien the way that I do John Jones.
So if anyone in the chat knows the ethnicity of Hawk Girl, because she looks kind of melanated a bit, let us know, because I don't know what the deal is with that.
As I was saying a moment ago, go back up. Right there. Scroll up, or down. Go down.
You're saying up and down.
Right there, stop. Okay, from Paul and I's childhood, that right there is where the Legion of Doom headquarters. And I don't know, again, not reading DC Comics in the 70s or 80s, I don't know if this comes from the comic book or if it came from the Super Friends, because that was the first time that base was introduced to me, was in the Super Friends. So, it's a chicken and the egg type thing, which came first.
The Super Friends for our generation is what the X-Men animated series was for the generation that came after us.
Right, exactly. But what I wanted to talk about is again Naomi.
Right.
And Naomi is in this book. Wonder Woman challenged her, and Naomi was like, "Yeah, I don't want that smoke." But the series, which is on the CW, had its 4th episode this past Tuesday, and I'm behind on it. But from what I'm seeing from a lot of different people, and when I say people, I'm talking about Black folks, a lot of folks are not liking that series. I personally I'm not a fan of it. It's nothing against the actress or the actors, but I don't find the writing particularly that good. Maybe even the directing. I hate it to say this, but Ava DuVernay is considered the executive producer of this.
Not the director.
And yet again, we have another project with her name attached that, to me, is subpar. I've not ever read A Wrinkle in Time, nor did I see that movie, which she directed. I've heard about it, and I heard it was just ass. And this is from people who I absolutely trust.
I read the book when I was a kid.
Yeah, I've never read it. I don't know anything about it, but in reference to the movie, I heard it was not good. I've mentioned before how Selma was an important story, but was not a great movie. Malcolm X, great movie, important story. Selma, important story, average movie to me as a movie viewer. I just hate for her to be attached to something that a lot of Black fans specifically do not like. Are you caught up on it, or where are you in reference to it?
I don't even know anymore. I
What
mean,
did you watch this week?
the last episode of that show I watched, she got her disc back from Zimbardo. Was that the latest episode?
Yes, and I've not finished that episode because I was having some technical issues. But yes, that was from this issue from this episode. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just not well done.
Yeah,
It's,
I'm not fired up to watch it every week.
no,
Um,
it
I just
follows
there.
behind it follows behind Superman and Lois, which I absolutely love. I love that show. There are other CW shows that have been, quite frankly, great.
Yeah.
Or extremely good. You know, I always like to compare Naomi to Stargirl because basically the protagonist of each is a young high school teenage girl. So I think it is a fair comparison. Stargirl knocked it out of the park when it first came on. This one, it's not good, man.
And it's difficult. It's a difficult adaptation because Naomi was only like 5 or 6 issues, and the show's going to be at least 10 episodes, right?
Probably. But,
So they
you
have
know,
to fit.
with the show, you have enough material there that you can add to her mythology because you're not limited by the comic books.
Well, that's the point I'm trying to make. Is that the series was only 5 or 6 issues. The show is at least 10 episodes. They're filling in gaps with filler, and the filler sucks. Having these side missions where they go to a university and the Scoobies are all there, and a guy pulls out a knapsack filled with sweatshirts for everybody in the Scooby gang that don't need to be there, that all fit them perfectly,
And they weren't initially supposed to be there.
and they weren't even supposed to be. It didn't make any
It's
sense, and stuff like that. Just you're interrupting your enjoyment of the show because you're scratching your head saying, "Why is that happening? It makes no sense. It's stupid." Um, all of her friends know that she has superpowers. It just I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Plus the fact that, you know, they throw in some random black friend or some black love interest that I don't know if it's going anywhere. As an example, the two shows that are fair comparisons are Black Lightning and Stargirl. Black Lightning was black AF. That show from beginning to end was black AF, and it
That shit
was
was
phenomenal.
blackety black.
It was great. I have no complaints about it. Filmed here in Atlanta. Um, it just it resonated it hit a whole bunch of notes for me as a viewer, as a black man, as a comic book collector.
And always had a message. They always had something
There,
educational they
there was
taught you.
something. It like I said, it hit on a whole bunch of different notes. It was just a very very well done series. This one, Naomi, is the only black character in the show besides her on again, off again, light skinned love interest. And
Miles Morales.
you know, do more with the fact that she's a black character, even though she is an alien. She was raised as a human, as a black girl from a multiracial family, even though in the comic books she came from two white parents as an adoptee. It's just missing. It's just not clicking at all.
Yeah,
But that was it as far as Justice League. I just wanted to point that out. You read Black Manta, yes?
I did.
You liked the series. I, however, did not as a series. I thought it was mediocre. But go ahead. What do you?
I like Black Manta. You have to read Black Manta and Aquaman Becoming together. Aquaman Becoming by, is it Brandon Thomas?
Sure, why not?
Sure, Brandon Thomas, and Black Manta by Chuck Brown. You have to read them together. They're basically like brother and sister books. What I like about that is between the two books, you realize that there's this other ancient race of Atlanteans that diverged from Atlantis, basically Black Atlanteans. Dope. And it's not a retcon because it's so brilliantly written that it's not a retcon because they're basically exploring a part of Atlanta that's just not talked about.
Atlantis. I'm in
And
Atlanta.
sorry, Atlanta. Atlanta. I was projecting because I haven't been to the A in a while. Um, so Chuck between Chuck Brown and Brandon Thomas, they have this other sect of Atlantis that in this ancient society that it's kind of like these black Atlanteans,
There you go.
and that's
We're the
cool because
aliens.
you ultimately find out that Black Manta is part of these people, um, as is the villain as well, Devil Ray, which means that Calderon, Aquaman or Aqualad, is also a part of this sect. So he's half Zebellian, and you also have him being an extension of these ancient Atlanteans, who are the only ones that can mix with this metal. Read the book. The other thing that's kind of cool in the Aquaman Becoming book is that you have. Let me think about this now. This might be the first all black, all superhero family unit in DC Comics.
No, it's not. Black Lightning.
All black, all superpowered family nuclear unit. The
Black
mother,
Lightning.
the mother in Black Lightning does not have superpowers.
That is correct. But the father and his two daughters do.
I understand. I said specifically all
So
black.
who did he have
All
this kid with? Who did he have his kid with?
he had. What do you mean, Black Manta?
Yes.
Black Manta had his child with an Atlantean woman, a Zebellian woman, actually, who has powers. Zebellians have powers, control water, etc. And Aqualad obviously is powered. So from having a mother,
Wait. Stop. You mentioned Aqualad. Okay. Are you saying that Aqualad is his son, or what are you saying?
yeah, I thought that was common knowledge.
I
Calderon is the son of Black Manta.
okay. So wait. So because until Young Justice, I never knew that Black Manta was an African American or a what we call black person. In the 70s, when Paul and I were coming up watching Super Friends, he never took off his mask and his ethnicity was never addressed. I
Right.
just thought he was a white dude who hated Aquaman and took on the name of a black manta like a manta ray. So in the comics, and this is me, Mark, asking you, Paul, in the comics, is Calderon the son of Black Manta? Because we learned in Young Justice that yes, he is. So does that mesh or no?
Yes, they're definitely father and son.
Okay,
And
I didn't know that.
in the series, you meet his mother, who's a Zebellian. Zebel, and that's spelled Xebel, is a subsect of Atlantis, this other uh, society, and they're like the water manipulators. Mira, Aquaman's wife, she's Zebellian. She's from that
Really?
society as
Okay.
well. So, um, in terms of having a mother, father, and child, and he has a sister too. So, what are the different mother? It's not important. A mother, father, and child unit who all have powers. This is and they're all black. This is that first one because Black Lightning is also a family that's superpowered, but the mother doesn't have powers. But this is the one where it's mother, father, and child all have powers. I think it's dope.
Now, let me interject here since we're on this whole Atlantis kick. In DC Comics, Atlantis was first and foremost, I think it's speculated or believed that Atlantis was a real place in human history that no longer exists.
Yeah.
In DC Comics, Atlantis was a land based nation that in ancient times was kind of run by this mage or sorcerer by the name of Arian, or yeah, Arian, Arion. I have every issue of his title. Love it. I bring that up because we're talking about Atlantis. If you've not watched the latest Young Justice series or season, let me tell you something. There were about 2 or 3 episodes that go into the history of Vandal Savage that tie into this discussion. One of the episodes was written by Kevin Grievous, and I didn't know who wrote it because the credits come at the end. But I'm watching that particular episode. I'm like, gosh darn. I didn't say gosh darn, but gosh darn, this is a very good episode. I see the end of it, and Kevin Grievous, aka the dude who created Blue Marvel, aka the guy who created the entire Underworld franchise, wrote that episode. And basically, in Young Justice, are you up on Young Justice this season?
Nah, it's this season sucked, dude.
Okay, I understand that, but there was an arc of about 2 or 3 episodes that talked about Vandal Savage. For those who don't know, Vandal Savage is an immortal, basically caveman who got his immortality by sidling up to and sleeping next to some type of asteroid that had landed on Earth. In Young Justice, the latest season, we find out about his history. He, Vandal Savage, is the great 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 or whatever grandfather of Orion or of Arian. Okay, Nabu, who we see all the time in Young Justice, he is also a descendant of Vandal Savage. So those 2 or 3 episodes tied all in with the history of the DC universe and those two particular individuals, Arian, who's very important to Atlantis, which is what we were talking about, and Nabu, who is basically a mystic who has the helm, which creates Dr. Fate. All of those people derive from Vandal Savage. And some of those episodes of this season were written by Kevin Grievous. It may be a slog to get to them, but I would highly encourage you folks to watch the latest season of Young Justice because how it all ties in, to me at least,
I don't know, dude.
it was brilliantly done.
That season is just
And
ugh.
that's fine. That's fine. But I'm you've watched worse things for longer. I'm telling you, those 2 or 3 episodes specifically, tying it all in and seeing how it works with how important Nabu is. And Arian hasn't really made any appearances in the animated DCAU until this. But for me, as a fan of Arian and having collected all of his books, I think he had like a 30 issue run back in the 80s, which I have. It was just very, very intriguing and enlightening. So I would highly encourage people to pick that up in conjunction with this whole and how that all ties in to Atlantis in Black Manta and the DC universe. So there's something to think about.
Mm, no.
So that was Black Manta. You liked it. I did not.
I
Um,
like Black Manta. Look, the other thing is, as I said, it's Black Manta and Aquaman coming. You kind of have to read them both together to get the full story of what's going on. Those two books are ending because they're a limited series, and they're starting a new book called Aquaman. So it will be obviously Calderon and Arthur Curry Aquaman will be the leads of the book, but Black Manta is also going to be involved in as well. Um, and let me point out one other cool book to get along those lines because I actually suggested to Chuck Brown on I think it was on Twitter that he introduced this one character that is a really cool character that has been kind of shelved as DC often does with black characters. They shelve these characters. They create dope characters and then they shelve them. And you never see them again. This is Aquaman 57. This has a lot of significance for me because this is one of the first comic books I ever owned. I got this book when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And what's cool about this book is that it has one of the first black water breathers that you see, if not the first black water breather you see in DC Comics. It's this guy right here, Cal Durham. Black Manta, who, for those who don't know, which I can't imagine there's someone who doesn't understand it, Black Manta, he's kind of this, pirate terrorist guy, but he does it under the auspices originally of being a militant black. Like, I'm here to free my people by pirating from the white people on the seas and being the scourge of the seas and give back to the black community. At least that's kind of his shtick. Um, Under that shtick of helping black people, this dude, who's one of his henchmen, his name is Cal Durham. Cal Durham said, my politics is what got me into this. I wanted to help black people, but you're out here trying to slaughter people. I'm not really down with that. Cal Durham volunteered for an experiment by Black Manta to get gills implanted in him. And that's what he did. He says, I gave you loyalty, wasn't one of your first volunteers for your gill plant experiments. But that's over now. So what does Black Manta do? Repay him for his loyalty, but disdain? He shoots him out of a torpedo tube into the ocean.
What year did this book come out?
Well, I was 4 or 5, so it had to be 1977, 76 or 77.
Do you know when? Do you know when the character of Black Manta was A, introduced, and B, unmasked? And the reason why I asked that question,
The Unmasked is easy. That was an adventure into comics number 320 something.
do you know what year that was?
I can tell you because I have the book.
And the reason why I asked that question is because, again, Paul and I, we came of age in the 70s. And in the 70s, the Super Friends was the go-to superhero show.
Adventure Comics 452, 1970, June of 1977.
Okay.
So I turned 5.
All right. So in the Super Friends, that cartoon was in the late 70s, early 80s. Not once did they ever show Black Manta without his mask. The only time I saw the first time I saw Black Manta without his mask was in Young Justice. Because
this is the issue. This issue right here, this is where you first discover that Black Manta is black.
It's black. Now, if you don't read the comic books, and a lot of people don't, it was a shock to see Black Manta was black when he was introduced in the Young Justice cartoon. It was a powerful moment because he's in his ship, and behind him you see Africanized masks on the wall of his submarine. I'm like, wait a minute, that's a brother. No idea, And even though Calderon had been there from the very, very beginning, it never registered to me that there were quote unquote Black Atlanteans, which Black Manta is not. But it never occurred to me because let me just say this. As a Marvel guy, I was accustomed to Atlanteans being blue. I didn't read Aquaman. I wasn't into that lore. I wasn't into those stories. So I never thought about how the Atlanteans in DC looked. To me, Atlanteans were blue with the exception of Namor because his mom had got together with some white dude on the land. So that's why, I never, it never really occurred to me how or why Calderon was black. But again, I never thought that Black Manta was black himself because of that. Yeah. So I just think it's interesting that back in the 70s and 80s, the cartoonists didn't show us what Black Manta looked like. I just think that's interesting.
So the Aquaman Becoming series, you learn that both of his parents are black. Just one's black, quote unquote, human. The other one's black Atlant or Zelbilian. It's confusing. He's the Black Atlantean for all intents and purposes.
Does Poseidon ever make an appearance in DC? Because I know he's a big part of Marvel and that
Dude,
pantheon, but
you're
I
asking the
don't.
wrong guy. I don't. I mean, what I've told you is the extent of my knowledge. I don't
Yeah,
know
gotcha.
that.
Okay, just curious. The other book that I wanted to discuss was Spider-Man 88 Point BEY.
For
Entered.
BEY stands for Beyond. For those who
Really,
aren't
I didn't.
familiar,
I
yes,
didn't
for
know
those
that.
who aren't familiar, in the Spider-Man books right now, Peter Parker has quote unquote retired, and Ben Riley is the new Spider-Man.
No,
The
no, no.
Beyond
He wasn't retired. He was injured and shelved.
I was trying to not give away the plot. Actually,
Eh.
that's why I said retired. The Beyond Corporation is this nefarious organization which, under the auspices of being a goody good, we're trying to help the world corporation, but they seem kind of shady. They've bought the mantle and trademark or whatever to Spider Man. Um, and they have recruited Ben Riley to be the new Spider Man under their corporate auspices. So they give him a new suit, all the tech, all the support to be Spider Man and spread their brand. So the BEY issues of that series are the Beyond Corporation
I
issues.
did not know that until this very moment. Thank you very much. But what's important about this book, this issue, is that it is black centric. Um, the
Hold
main
on. Let me interject one point here. Marvel has had a history of introducing black characters. They don't trust black characters on their own. They're not just going to. Marvel could have simply just say, hey, we're going to do this new book called Slingers, put a black guy in charge of it, and we're going to put it out and trust that it's going to sell well. They don't do that. What they do is they introduce these black characters sideways in another book, and you don't realize it, but it's part of the white book, and that's how they introduce a major character. They did that with Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau. You know, amazing. What is it?
Amazing
The annual
Spider-Man
annual
Annual 12, I think.
16 annual 16 is where Monica Rambeau. Spider Man's in a couple panels, but it's really a Monica Rambeau book. This is the same type of deal, although Hobie Brown's been introduced a long time ago, but he's being reintroduced as this Hornet character. Technically, his first introduction was actually in King of Black 9 months ago. He had a one shot in the King of Black series in which he takes on the mantle of the Hornet. Go ahead.
This dude reminds me of Michael Holt from DC Comics. Michael Holt, aka Mr. Terrific. And this is him working out with his black girlfriend on the
Who's a lawyer?
couch, right? Who's a lawyer. Now I want to say he's a convicted felon, and he's shacked up with a lawyer. This is him in costume right here. And Paul, you can probably bring up these images and panels a lot better
Yeah,
for
what's
me.
interesting is that in his first encounter with this other person, they're like, "Well, why are you wearing the Hornets costume?" And he's like, "Well, first of all, I created this costume." So I mean that gets into the whole concept of the
Intellectual
black,
property
legacy,
for one thing.
black legacy characters, and people are like, I don't read comics that black faces on white characters because they're legacy characters. He points out immediately, and the writer of this book is who's the writer?
I don't know. Hold on.
It's a black writer, if I'm not mistaken.
Jeffrey Thorne.
Jeffrey Thorne.
Jeffrey Thorne, who is a phenomenal writer.
Jeffrey Thorne, who wrote the Black Panther King in Black one shot that was amazing. The best Black Panther one shot I've ever read.
That one shot was better than the entire Coach run on Black Panther.
Well, all right. Well, so Jeffrey Thorne wrote this, and he
Wasn't his
immediately,
best, but it was good.
huh?
I don't think it was his best writing, but it was good.
Yeah. Let me pull it up right here. So here's the book here. You've got the Hornet, which is Hobie Brown, which, as if you don't know who Hobie Brown is, he was introduced in Amazing Spider-Man number 78 as the Prowler. He was a brilliant inventor, built himself a suit that gave him powers, basically, or abilities, and used it for crime because he felt sort of disenfranchised, not recognized for his brilliance, and decided to turn to crime. Spider-Man flipped him around, said, "Don't you're so brilliant, don't waste your talents on crime. Be a superhero." And he shifted from being a criminal to an anti-hero to a full-blown hero. So now he has given up the Prowler persona for the Hornet. Um, and so he runs across. Remember I was telling you about the legacy character issue. He runs across this one character, and she's like, "Why are you dressed up as the Hornet?" And he says, "First, the costume's mine. I designed it." So Jeffrey Thorne is smart enough to know that black readers like ourselves are going to point our noses up and say, I don't believe in legacy characters. So he nips it off at the bud, but pointing out that the Hornet is actually his deal. Like he created the Hornet. It's his. So I thought that was kind of a cool scene. Go ahead and explain.
Yeah, no, I just thought it was a cool storyline because it was black centric.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge Jeffrey Thorne fan. Like Paul just mentioned a moment ago, the King in Black storyline involving T'Challa was just that one issue in and of itself was just a phenomenal issue. I don't think this was Jeffrey Thorne's best writing. It wasn't horrible by any stretch of the imagination. But it focused on a black character, which I liked and appreciated. So I would just encourage people to pick it up. And again, I had no idea that the BEY was its own type of thing. So I'm gonna have to address that in my collection when I store these.
Yeah, my one criticism of this goes back to kind of the legacy thing, actually. I know it may sound kind of contradictory here, but this guy is brilliant. He has the technology to give himself powers that can allow him to compete against just about any adversary. Um, I like the fact that they have moved him away from the Prowler persona because of its ties to his criminal past, and I hate the fact that many black superhero
Start
characters,
off as criminals
started
first.
off as criminals first.
Luke
I don't like
Cage,
that.
Sam Wilson, the
It's
Prowler,
just one of those tropes. Even Storm,
and
she was a thief when she was in
who?
Cairo. Like
Storm.
Storm,
Yeah,
like all these characters, they always have. It's the trope that I'm tired of seeing. So I like the fact that he gave up the Prowler persona. Even the name Prowler that's a burglar. I mean,
yeah.
it's a creep. You can't have
It's
this.
not a
It's a creepy
positive
name.
connotation.
Yeah, it's not a positive superheroic name. Doesn't inspire anything. So I have no problems with him giving up his Prowler persona for something else. But to do that as another character, the Hornet, who's kind of a D-list, C-list character, um, I thought that there was a missed opportunity here for him to be a new persona that he created. He has the brilliance to be a new hero, and they should have just simply done that. Something
His
completely
uniform
different.
reminds me of Firefly from DC Comics, who was, at least in the animated version, a Batman foe.
Yeah.
And
Call
it
him
was,
Firefly. Something else, not Hornet.
yeah, yeah, Firefly. Because when I think of Hornet, I think of the Brown Hornet from the Cosby Kids. But looking at his uniform, I think of
Man, I hadn't
Firefly.
even thought about that. He's
Yeah,
got brown skin. He's a Hornet. He's the Brown Hornet.
yep.
It would have been
Um,
funny. It would have been funny if they made this color scheme like a black and
no, no, no. His
a
color scheme
yellow
was
and
brown
orange
and yellow.
color
Yeah,
scheme. Yeah,
brown
brown
and
and
yellow.
yellow.
But when I saw him in this issue, my thought was Firefly from the Batman animated world. So yeah, those were the ones that I wanted to address that had black folks. I last week I think we talked about Two Moons.
I,
That
I have I have another book that I want to talk about.
yeah,
So I picked up these two books. The MCU is my comic collecting is at this point in terms of back issues really about trying to build my black comic library before I get priced out. Because every time um, there's some spec about the MCU or whatever, people buy up these comics and the prices go up and they become astronomical. I was fortunate to get a few of these issues of stuff before spec involved. Like I got my Strange Tales 169 like a year and a half ago before there was rumors that Brother Voodoo might show up in Doctor Strange or something. So I got it at a really reasonable price compared to, that book is astronomically priced right now. But I have been collecting as many Brother Voodoo storylines as I can because if he does come or a trailer drops or there's a casting announcement, all of those Brother Voodoo books are going to be priced out. And I don't want that to happen to me because I don't like paying a bunch of money for comic books. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I found this series because another thing that Marvel is going, they're doing their cosmic thing, but I think they're now moving into the mystical side of things with this Doctor Strange film. And there's also the idea that they're going to go into Marvel horror. The Marvel horror consists of Doctor Strange is a part of that, but Blade is going to come out, right?
Werewolf by Night,
Werewolf by Night,
Moon Knight,
Moon Knight,
Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, Frankenstein's monster. Marvel had a whole horror section, very popular in the '70s, in particular. That there's a possibility they're gonna re-explore because with these characters, we know they're coming. They've already cast a guy for Werewolf by Night, a Hispanic guy for Werewolf by Night for the modern incarnation of it. We know that the Moon Knight's already here. We know that Blade is already here. We know that vampires exist in the MCU because they talked about that in Loki. And we know that Doctor Strange exists, obviously. The horror is right around the corner. These characters are out there. So I found this series right along those lines. This series is called The Supernaturals. Let me see if you can not get the glare on here.
What year did it come out?
This came out, interestingly enough, that's a good question. It came out in 1998. You've got Brother Voodoo right there front and center. On the cover, there's also the other characters, Ghost Rider, Werewolf by Night. I forget this one character's name. You have Satana. And
David Hellstrom, you in there?
Let me just crack it open. So you have Brother Voodoo, Werewolf by Night, Ghost Rider, Black Cat, Felicia Hardy, Satana, Gargoyle. That's the team of all sort of monster superheroes, supernatural superheroes. And they formed this team in 98. So this was actually, it's kind of a unique story. Marvel partnered with this independent company called, I don't remember what it was called. It wasn't Malibu, but it was something like that to produce this book. This was the preview book, kind of like the issue 0. I also got the first issue. There's 4 issues in total in addition to the preview book. But it made me also think about what happened in 98. In 1998, that's when the Blade movie came out. Marvel revitalized Blade as a character. They reimagined the character because of the Blade movie. They actually had Blade, because remember, before the Blade movie, Blade didn't really have superpowers. A lot of people don't realize that. He did not. His power boost actually occurred as a result of a bite from Morbius in Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man.
As an aside, I have no interest whatsoever in seeing Morbius. None.
So we have Blade. We have Brother Voodoo gets this makeover because he looks much more heroic here. He's got like because before that he's doing the barefoot thing and he's got a cape, he's got a mask, he's got boots, he's got a whole superhero suit. Um, Brother Voodoo, Blade, and what was the other thing that happened in '98? Brother Voodoo, Blade. Who am I missing? Ah, jeez, why is this button? This Brother Voodoo, Blade. Name another black character from that. Oh, Black Panther, the Priest run. Um, all of these three black characters got reimagined in 1998. I thought it was kind of interesting because Priest Run was in 1998. He took a C-list character and made him cool.
I did not like who was the artist on those first issues of the Priest Run. Do you know off the top of your head?
The first artist.
Yes.
All right. So first of all, the Priest Run was originally a Marvel Knights run. It was supposed to only be a limited series, the Marvel Knights limited series, but it was so successful that they made it an ongoing series, and it went what? How many issues was that? 60
Like
issues?
56, 57, something like that.
50? Yeah, it was something like that. 57 issues, something like that. The initial artist was Mark Texiera, and he was later replaced by ultimately Sal Voluto.
Excuse me, real quick. 62. That was volume number 3. Was the
Three.
Priest Run?
Yeah.
I did not like how T'Challa looked. He looked more like Shame from Low Down Dirty Shame or Shaft or whatever.
Intentionally.
Huh?
Intentionally.
Right. Yeah. I personally did not like that. I like the low haircut, suave, smooth, sophisticated T'Challa. The artist who's doing it now for help me out. Who's the
For
writer
which?
now?
Who's the writer?
Yes, on the current run.
Uh, John Ridley?
Yes, on the Ridley run. I like the way he's portrayed perfectly. I did not like how
You
he
mean you
looked.
mean artistically, not written? Because the
Yes,
words coming out of his mouth are just kind of questionable.
right. Artistically, I did not like how T'Challa was portrayed in Volume 3. The current volume and the current volume, I like the way that he looks artistically.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the way
by
T'Challa should
German
always be.
Peralta, I believe, is the artist,
Yeah, yeah. That to me is T'Challa.
and Joshua
In
Cavallo.
the priest run, despite the fact that
Monk.
the Dora Milaje were introduced, and all that other stuff, all the benefits that Christopher Priest gave to us, I just didn't like the way he looked. He was bald headed. That should never happen. He had a full mustache and goatee. That should never happen. T'Challa as a character is clean shaven. I don't recall there ever being a point when, as an example, Steve Rogers has been bald or had a mustache and beard.
Well, he's white
There
though.
was there is
Black
a.
people make that work.
I'm sorry.
I said, but he's white though. Black people make that work.
Okay, sure. But there is a prototype of what that character looks like, and rarely have they deviated from that in reference to Steve Rogers. You typically don't see Tony Stark bald or without his signature mustache. There may have been points in time when he's had a beard or whatever, but it's because he was, off in distant lands and time displaced or whatever. Um, but his 616 appearances have been with him with the black hair and the Playboy. What's my man's name? Who was the real life pilot?
Howard
Not
Hughes.
Howard Stern.
Howard
Howard,
Hughes.
Howard Hughes. Um, that's what he's looked like. That's what Tony Stark has always looked like. There should be a set uniform way that T'Challa looks like, and they deviated from that in Volume 3 during the Priest run, which I did. I liked the Priest run. I did not like how T'Challa was artistically drawn. So that was it. But when
T'Challa
you talk,
underwent several different. iterations and appearances during that run. So you might want to be specific and say you didn't like his initial appearance.
Initial, right. That's that. Yeah, that's what I was saying in the first ones. You mentioned Ghost Rider a second ago, and I just something I wanted to mention. As anybody who's paid attention to this channel or this page, as far as Black Comic Lords and things of that nature, I am a huge fan of fan casting.
No,
No, seriously, I am. And because I read these books, when you read comics, in your internal monologue, typically you view what you think that character would look like live action or
you're right,
how they would
Otis.
sound.
Joe just go. I'm sorry. I have been remiss. People have been commenting in the chat, and I have not been addressing it. I apologize to you all.
Okay, well let me just say this real quick. Um because
Uh,
I'm a huge because I like fan casting. Um Idris Elba, who is a great actor, is a very good actor. You mentioned earlier Ghost Rider. Idris Elba was in Ghost Rider. He was in Heimdall in the MCU, and he's also in the DC.
wait, Idris Elba was in Ghost Rider.
Yes, in number two. He was in Ghost Rider number two.
Oh, no, but that doesn't count. Nobody saw that movie.
He was in Ghost Rider number two. It was a comic book movie. He was prominently in the MCU as Heimdall, and he's also in the Suicide Squad. Please, if you're going to fan cast, please do not use Michael J. White. Please do not use Michael B. Jordan. Please do not use Idris Elba. Those folks have been used up in other stuff. You don't have to keep using the same people all the time that you can fan cast.
Okay, okay, no mas. Rico Jones points out the Legion of Monsters are coming, and he says also the Midnight Suns. Though that's what I was trying to remember. Their name is the Legion of Monsters. Um, this Supernaturals book. That's what this is. This is the Legion
The
of
Midnight
Monsters.
Suns, right?
Midnight Suns, same thing. Um, let's see. I think this is Otis say Joe Jusko did a couple of issues as well before Sal Voluto. That's correct. Joe Jusko did some interesting issues as well. This artist on Black Panther. And then Rico also says Blade did have some powers and abilities. For example, he was immune to vampire bites. You're right. You're right. I meant in terms of his uh, enhanced strength. And he says and could go toe to toe with Dracula, but his powers and abilities were enhanced after Morbius bit him. Yeah, he got juiced up when Morbius bit him in that. And shout out to Rico Jones because the only reason I even knew about the Morbius bite thing was through Rico. So shout out to Rico for that because he's probably the biggest Blade fan out there. Go ahead, do your fan cast thing.
No. I'm just waiting on the other comments. No, I just said what I had to say. Stop using the same people. Stop recycling people. Yes, we know that they have recycled Christopher Evans and a whole host of other people. It should not necessarily be done. And they keep wasting people in these insignificant roles. For example, Jaimin Hansu, great actor. He's bounced back and forth between Marvel as in the Captain Marvel series and DC as the Wizard Shazam in the Shazam movie. That was totally unnecessary. You could have anybody play Shazam. You did not have to cast Jaimin Hansu. Same thing with my boy, whose name I can never get right, who played Mr. Echo in Lost and Adabisi in Oz.
Oh damn, I can't pronounce that.
I can never get his name right, but he was wasted in Thor: The Dark World. He was also wasted in the original Suicide Squad because you could not see him as an individual or as an actor.
Because he was playing Killer Croc.
Right. He was hidden behind layers of makeup. If Black Panther had been made, say in 1995, 1996, he would have been my choice to play T'Challa. Not
You're
Wesley
insane.
Snipes.
if Black Panther was made in 1995, there's no other actor that should have played him but Wesley Snipes.
As I was saying, Wesley Snipes, who, I like as an actor. Wesley Snipes is 5'8", 5'9". Adebisi is, 6 feet, give or take. He is of African heritage, even though I want to say he was raised in England or France. I can't remember which, but he would have been my number one choice back in the 90s to play T'Challa. Even though Wesley Snipes has had a higher profile, he, Adebisi, or is what I call him, he would have been better physically fit to play that role as far as looks are concerned. Um, so,
Behind the scenes says, "What's going on, Black Comic Lords? Keep them dreams pouring. Yabambe."
bruh,
Absolutely.
listen. For me, I just bought this bottle. It's called Smoke Wagon. It's a whiskey that I just poured. It is not bad. It's not the worst thing. It's not the best thing, but it is not bad for the price, $45.
I'm
I'm
just
been
having some Jamaican Appleton rum. You know, bless up.
yeah. So anyway, what else? What other comments are
Oh,
there?
did you get this?
Yes. And the only reason why I got it, it's right here. Yes. Now, as I was reading it, I felt that I was missing some stuff. So it
So
looks
you
like
just
I
you
have to
just
go back
have the book just there with no bag and board, nothing, huh?
because I haven't finished reading it. I'm reading it.
Oh,
See, I don't just buy the stuff to say that I've got it. I actually read them.
I read
And
it.
right. So I'm in the middle of reading this, but as I was reading it, I realized, okay, there was some more story because this was issue number 8. There was some more story that I'm missing that I need to delve
All right.
into.
The story's irrelevant. I literally have been buying this book from jump because I knew of the Warbird character being introduced. And for those of you who are jumping on the Warbird bandwagon, you're welcome because I told people about this book, but no one listened to me. Um, the issues that you want to get are issues 1, 3, 5, 7, probably, and 8.
You know,
Okay.
I wouldn't do that. I would get all of them.
I'm talking purely to the spec people. The reason I say that is the underlying storyline of this about Sai and the Vietnam thing, and it's the stories are kind of all over the place, to be honest with you. But what intrigues me is the Warbird character because, in essence, these group of Shi'ar come down to Earth. They go down to Wakanda specifically, meet this Jabari tribe, and this is an expeditionary force of Shi'ar. And they recruit these Jabari. Actually, it's not the Jabari tribe. It's a sect of the Jabari tribe who left Wakanda. So they actually were, I think, in North Africa, that left the Jabari lands. And so the Shi'ar hook up with them, and they're like, "We need tour guides of your planet because we're doing an expedition." And so Jabari agreed to be recruited by the Shi'ar to be their guides. And the head Jabari guy falls in love with the head Shi'ar chick, and they have a kid who is Warbird. So you have this Shi'ar Wakandan hybrid girl who is Warbird.
She's
She
not
is
the
a
original Warbird,
she
though.
is not the original. In fact, she's actually like the fourth Warbird. Um, Carol Danvers at one point had the name Warbird. There
Really?
was a Warbird in X Factor. There was a Warbird in, I want to say, like Uncanny Avengers at one point as well.
To me, Warbird has always been Leandra's sister. That's the whenever I hear.
Deathbird, Deathbird. That's Deathbird.
Oh, okay, okay.
Lilandra Liani of the Shi'ar is the sister of Deathbird.
Deathbird. Okay, I thought it was Warbird.
Right.
Okay.
And Deathbird is the mother of Bishop's kid, whose name escapes me. That was a whole convoluted thing. Bishop technically has a kid out there because comics, black guys in comics. Anyway, for those who want Warbird's appearances, her first appearance is not issue number one. Everyone's buying up issue number one. She has a cameo in issue number one. Her first cover appearance is on issue number one, but it's just basically a cameo. Issue number three is where you see her as a child. Um, 3, 5. I said 1, 3, 5, and 7. Issue 3 is when you see her as a child, but she has dialogue and she is referred to as Warbird. So technically, that is her first appearance, albeit as a child. Her first appearance as an adult in costume is in issue number 5. Issue number 7 is where she actually talks a little bit about her background. And you find out that you see her father as a Wakanda or whatever. And this issue number 8 is where they bring it all together and gives you her full origin. So
Yeah, I stopped reading in the middle because of the fact that obviously I was missing some things. So my plan is to go back and get issues 1 through 7.
you're not really missing much.
I'm sure, but I'm a completionist, so
I get it. I'm just telling you, the story's kind of all over the place.
listen. I understand, but as a completionist, earlier you mentioned horror comic books because of the fact that in Moon Knight, the sons of what are they called again?
The Midnight Suns.
The Midnight Suns. This, how do I say this? I've now, over the past 2 or 3 years, been collecting more non-traditional comic books. And by that, I mean, coming up as a youth, I only collected...
As a youth?
As a youth. I collected Cape and Cow books. That was pretty much it, from mainly Marvel, some DC. Cape and Cow are people with superheroes, with secret identities, who went out there to fight crime, keep world, planet, universe safe. Over the past 2 or 3 years since COVID, I have been expanding my collection outside of Marvel DC Image to other comic book companies and other genres. Because we were talking about horror, one specifically that I absolutely loved was one called Bunny Mask. I think the studio is Black Mask. I could be wrong on that, and I don't feel like looking it up right now. But Bunny Mask was good. And there's another one that I'm reading called Maw, M-A-W. And I think that is a Boom Studios book. And I am correct. It's a Boom Studios book. And it has nothing to do with capes and cows. It does involve some mysticism and people with abilities. I'm really, really enjoying that. So if you are in the horror genre, or if you are a fan of the horror genre, I'm going to highly recommend Bunny Mask. And as an extension of that, I'm going to suggest Maw, M-A-W. And the only reason why I bought that specific book was because it had my initials. But after I started reading it, I'm really enjoying it. What are some of the other comments that we have?
This one's directed towards you, actually, because you're the movie guy. Behind the scene, who you should check out his YouTube page, by the way. There's a black actor from Peacemaker who's supposed to make a splash in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 due to James Gunn liking him. Who is the black actor, by the way?
There's a guy in Peacemaker, which is let me tell you something. It's crazy how some of the best TV right now are based on nerd stuff. And by nerd stuff, I mean Star Wars. I mean DC Universe and Marvel Universe. But if behind the scenes is talking about who I'm thinking they're talking about, there's a guy who is spoiler alert. This is a spoiler. If you don't want to have any spoilers about Peacemaker, just take 30 seconds out, push mute, push pause, whatever.
Hold on, let me mute you. Just wave your hands when you're done because I haven't watched it yet.
All right. There is a
Steve.
character in Peacemaker who is a black guy. He presents as a black guy, but his body has been invaded by the alien species that permeates in Peacemaker. I'm assuming you mean that actor. He's okay. His character is okay. That may be who you're talking about, who's going to make an appearance in Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy, there was a article. I can't remember who it was. British GQ, I think, and they listed and ranked every MCU property from the movies to the series to the animated stuff. And when I say animated stuff, I'm talking about What If, and they ranked them all. And I want to say that list had Guardians of the Galaxy at number one. Now, I like James Gunn, huge fan of Chris Pratt, and
Are you done yet?
Dave Bautista.
Fuck.
Dave Bautista has turned into a really good actor. The Guardians of the Galaxy movies are mid to me. They don't belong in the top 10, maybe the top 20. But this article had them at the very, very top. So I'm assuming, going back to Peacemaker, I'm assuming that's the black dude that you are thinking about that's gonna be in Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know because I haven't seen anything about it. So anyway, so I don't know if Paul has left or what, but he may have inadvertently kicked himself out of the group, because this would not be the first time that he has done that. Quite frankly, let me see if I have any type of abilities to see what's
You
going
don't.
on. There he
Are you
is.
done?
Yeah, that's it. So
All right. You got another comment here. Michael Jai White doesn't need any more superhero roles. The man is an action movie legend. He's going down in history with Chuck Norris, Van Damme, Stallone, Steven Seagal, and Charles Bronson, and more.
okay, let me stop before you say anything. Behind the scene, whatever you're drinking, whatever you're smoking, whatever you're ingesting, I'm gonna need you to put it back. Michael Jai White is not a good actor. He will never
Wait,
be
wait,
in the
wait, wait. So
category.
you're saying all these other guys are great actors? Jean Claude Van Damme is a great actor. Chuck Norris is a great actor.
What I will say is that they have made great action movies. Michael Jai White will never be in their company. Okay, he's been in
Damn.
the business for a very long time. Michael Jai White is a C-list actor. He's not that good. His movies are not that good. There was a movie with him, Tony Jaa, and oh boy from The Raid. I don't know his name.
Yeah.
Um,
Everybody knows who that dude is.
right, but that dude was a good action star. There was a movie that was on Netflix with those three that I tried to watch. I turned it off after 30 minutes. Listen, no disrespect to Michael Jai White. I'm sure he's a great guy. I'm sure he's an excellent fighter, like in real life. But his production, as far as in Hollywood, he will never be compared to Chuck Norris, Van Damme, Stallone. He just doesn't mesh with that at all. So no. But I will say this: Michael Jai White, who's not a good actor, but he's played Spawn, he's played in Batman, and he's played in the Arrowverse as Bronze Tiger. If they wanted to bring and he voiced a character in Batman, what was Sons of the Dragon or something like that? What was it called?
Yeah, Sons of the Dragon.
Right. He voiced that character. So he's got a lot of comic book work. He doesn't need to do anything else ever. But if they want to bring him back as Bronze Tiger, I would not object to that. Personally, as a movie watcher, what I would like to see is Black Dynamite 2. Black Dynamite was his best role ever. Black Dynamite, listen, he should have had a 3-movie deal or a 3-movie series of Black Dynamite. That was a brilliant movie. Brilliant movie. It was great. So, yeah, that's it. What other comments are there?
Let's see. Well, this goes backwards a little bit. Silver Coin is really good horror as well.
Okay.
I think that might have been Otis. Behind the scenes said, "Did anyone enjoy Dark Blood by Boom Studios? I felt like the main character was being dragged too hard for me to continue. Painful history of black military members, and I couldn't read past issue 3."
I enjoyed it.
That was kind of my problem too with that series, particularly like the first couple issues. Man, I mean that brother just the disrespect. It
But
was
look at the time
painful.
period in which it was set. So
No,
it
no, no,
was
no. I get all that, but there comes a time where there's only so much trauma porn that you can take,
which I
and
get.
it,
I
it,
enjoyed it. I
it
had
was it
no.
was hardcore trauma porn. Um, I hope there is a continuation of the series to not just leave it off on that sort of cliffhanger ending that it had. Because I think there's a lot to be explored there that just hasn't been. So I hope there's a volume 2.
Let me just interject something real quick, since behind the scenes brought out Dark Blood.
Behind the
I
scene also
like.
said, "Haha, I'm sober tonight, but I can understand that he doesn't have the exact star power. Black Dynamite is the truth."
Right. Let me along with horror comics, I have been collecting over the past 3 years more black comics than I ever have in my life. Probably because they didn't exist. Probably because we have more about them, and because of the spaces that I belong to on Facebook specifically, it's making me aware of their existence. Dark Blood, White, and Black, and Excellence all fall into the same genre of books to me, where you have black protagonists who have powers, who are fighting against the man or white folks, whatever, who don't have powers. I enjoy Dark Blood personally, but like I said, those three specifically for me all fall into the same vein, and I would encourage people to try to find and get those books if you can. Dark Blood, which is 6 issues at this point. White, which was 6 issues. I think Black was 6 issues, give or take. And Excellent. I think we're up to issue 13 or 14 in regards to that. So, yeah. What are the comments?
Let's see. No, that was the last one.
Okay. What about in the groups? I haven't paid attention to the actual.
They should all be here. That's how it works.
Let's see, though. Let us see. But talking about fan casting earlier, there's something I wanted to say about fan. Oh, yeah, we're talking about fan casting earlier, and I was showing a picture of the Spider-Man book, and we had the brother who had his girlfriend on the couch, and this goes back to why, for me, it is important that the character of T'Challa in the MCU is recast, and it is this. In comic books, to my understanding and knowledge, there is not a long lasting black couple in comic books. When I think of comic book couples, you think automatically about Superman and Lois. They've been together since FDR or Wilson has been in the White House. You think about Mary Jane and Peter Parker. They've been together since Johnson was in the White House. You think about Reed and Sue, also together, probably since Kennedy was in the White House. You do not, or we as fans, do not have an exemplar of long lasting black love in comic books. You had T'Challa with Monica Lynn for the McGregor run. She may have made an appearance in Priest, I don't remember. But at a certain point, that relationship ended. All due respect to Reginald Hudlin, who really delved into this relationship for a period of about 5 to 8 years. You had T'Challa and Storm. And to me, as a comic book reader, as a fan, that relationship made so much sense. My comic book guy, Mike at Titan Comics in Atlanta, he never liked that. For me, it made sense. You've got two individuals from different countries in Africa, both of whom have found themselves in New York
Pause,
fighting.
pause, pause. Screw you, Mike. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Go ahead.
Both of whom find themselves in New York. Both of them are intelligent. Both of them are attractive. So for me, it makes sense, especially considering the fact that their union or their meeting was first dropped back in like 1982 or whatever. So the way that Reginald Hudlin delved and mined into that story made perfect sense. And so this is yet another reason why that T'Challa, the character in the MCU, needs to be recast so we can have that union of T'Challa and Aurora Monroe. They need to recast T'Challa. No variants, no anything other than a new actor playing the same role of T'Challa that Chadwick Boseman made famous. So that's it.
Behind the scenes says, likewise, my perspective of comics and collecting has changed due to Black Comic Lords and y'all's hard work. But thank you very much for that, man. Give us a shout out on the page when you do your YouTubes. The main character has some major tail to kick for Dark Blood Volume 2. I hope there is a Volume 2, man.
Yeah.
There needs to be a Volume 2 because they can't leave that story there.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I don't know how the book did as far as sales or whatever, but I
That
enjoyed
first issue certainly sold well, all those variants and stuff.
it. Right. I'm really liking Excellence. I'm really
You got Excellence 12?
whatever the latest. I'm up to date, and
Okay,
I've read them
that's
all.
12, yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a fantastically underrated series.
yeah.
In terms of having an original concept. I mean, you got these hoteps in our space always talking about, well, I don't support, legacy characters. I only support original black characters by indies. Well, Excellence is right there. Are you buying that book?
What
Because
about Philadelphia?
they're there. I mean, we're Black Comic Lords. We got everything. We got Marvel, DC, indies. We promote everything. Um, what's on your pull list? Because if you're not pulling Excellence and Philadelphia and these books,
Nita Hawes on Nightmare
Nita
Brewster.
Hawes, we just talked about Dark Blood.
I like Nita Hawes better than I do Philadelphia, I think.
Dude, Nita Hawes, yeah. And that's hard for me to say because I love Philadelphia. Nita Hawes is just on a whole nother level.
For those who don't know, Philadelphia is a book by Rodney Barnes
Yes.
about vampires. And there's a twist, which I'm not going to divulge, but it was a brilliant twist. But it falls into the same, vampire lore. The main protagonist of Philadelphia is a brother by the name of
Jimmy Sangster.
Jimmy Sangster. The story takes place, Philadelphia takes place in Philadelphia. But the character of Jimmy Sangster originated in Baltimore. When Jimmy was in
Where
Baltimore,
Rodney Barnes is originally from, by the way.
right. When Jimmy was in Baltimore in the comics, he was dating this chick by the name of Nita Hawes. Jimmy, goes back to Philadelphia to deal with the death of his father. But he left, like I said, this black chick behind.
Who's a news reporter, blogger type person.
Right.
And college professor, I believe.
Right. Yes, she is a college professor. And she is introduced to the macabre, to the spiritual realm. And the way she's introduced to it makes sense. And it is very, very well done. So personally, I like that. And let me put it this way. If Anita Hawes is a 10, Philadelphia is a 9.75. It's a difference of inches. It's a very, very good read. I think we're up to issue 4, maybe 5. So if it is not on your pull list, if you're a comic book collector, I will highly encourage you because Paul told me about it. I would highly encourage you to pick up Nita Hawes' Nightmare blog. And as an aside, I tweeted out to Rodney, how should I keep that book or that title in my collection? Because initially I was going to put it with Philadelphia because they're all kind of connected. But he encouraged me to put it with the N's under Nita, not H's under Hawes or whatever. So just a little tidbit.
Let's go to behind the scenes. He says, romance never lasts too long in comics. Peter sold his marriage to the devil to save Aunt May. Clark and Lois are on and off again. Every relaunch, Cyclops is still getting cucked by Wolverine.
Not really. Not
Yeah, he's not cucked anymore. They're in a throuple.
at the end of the day, when you think about certain comic book characters, you know who their partner is. When you think about Superman, you know that he's going to be paired with Lois. They just recently
Even when he was smashing Wonder Woman, he still went back to Lois.
kind of an alt version, but okay, yeah.
No, it is. It was definitely an alt version. But I'm saying
Right.
story wise, they ultimately, when they ended that series, he's back with Lois in the next iteration.
Superman and Lois go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Reed and Sue go hand in hand.
If you can go to any mainstream person who's not familiar with comics and say, who's Superman's girlfriend? What's
Right.
their answer going to be?
Right.
They're not going to talk about Lana Lang or
Right.
Wonder Woman. They're going to say Lois Lane.
Peter.
If you ask, who's Peter Parker's girlfriend? They're going to say Mary Jane. They're not going to say Gwen Stacy. They're not going to say Black Cat.
Right. Now, Peter, for a nerd, he gets a lot of tail. But yes, his main love is Mary Jane. When you think of The Flash, you think of Iris West. When you think of Wonder Woman, you think of Steve Trevor for 40 years, right? We as a Black person, we as Black people need to see that same dedication of love displayed on pages the way that the white folks have with all the characters that we just named.
Right.
And his T'Challa's relationship with Storm, to me, makes perfect sense. The only benefit to me that I saw that came from the Ta-Nehisi Coates run was that he tried to undo whatever the authors or writers in Avengers versus X-Men tried to undo, making T'Challa divorce Storm in the middle of a fight.
I think that was Jason Aaron.
To this day, I don't understand what the purpose of that was. It's not like T'Challa caught her Storm cheating on him. It just
for context.
It made no sense.
It does make a certain business sense because
no, it doesn't.
Let me explain the context. The context of it when this happened was when Marvel was at war with Sony over rights to the X-Men. Marvel at the same time withdrew the X-Men into obscurity in the comics. They sidelined the X-Men. They literally exiled the X-Men to limbo. I'm not even making that up. Like, they exiled the X-Men to limbo and took them out of the Marvel universe. All the mutants. First of all, they decimated them to 198 characters. And then exiled the remaining 200 mutants to limbo so that they would not be in the main Marvel continuity. And at the same time they brought the mutants down, they raised up the Inhumans. And so now you had all these Inhuman characters pop out of nowhere, which is where we got Ms. Marvel, where we got Moon Girl. You know, all of these characters are born out of, they're basically trying to replace the mutants in the Marvel Universe with the Inhumans.
Right.
So having T'Challa and Storm together, having the main X-Men, the leader of the X-Men, married to now a A-list Avenger, it would not work.
And as an aside, the whole Hudlin run came well in advance, and I don't say probably like 13 years in advance of the Black Panther movie.
So. Yeah. So I think that was a large driver of splitting them up. but that does not explain why they kept them apart for so long, and it's damn sure will not explain the actions of Marauders 13, which I don't talk about because that book is banned on this page forever.
Yeah, and that's and that's another thing. Ta-Nehisi Coates tried to build that relationship up slowly, but then in the
We're
Powers
not
of the
talking about that. We're not talking about. Look, I'm dead ass serious about this. We don't talk about that book.
okay, well, you can push mute or whatever for yourself, but for folks who don't know,
How do I
there
mute
was a
this?
storyline where the
Look at that. I muted him. I'm dead ass serious. We don't talk about Marauders 13 on this page. It's banned. He's still talking. This is funny. Go ahead.
basically in the X book, Jonathan Hickman, who is a brilliant, brilliant writer. I mean, he's right up there with Chris Claremont with
He
what
really
he
is.
did with
Can I mention one thing on Jonathan Hickman, by the way?
next title.
Let me show this
Well,
because
hold
I
on, hold on, time out before we go there, so I can keep this train of thought.
no, it's along what you're talking about right now. Jonathan Hickman is the one who wrote this.
Right,
Fantastic Four 60. See his name right here.
right.
Fantastic Four 607 and Fantastic Four 608. If
Basically,
you're a
what
Black
this
Panther
is
fan,
in
you have to have
Fantastic
this in
Four
your collection.
607 and 608, this was after Hudlin's brilliant run on Black. Well, this was during Hudlin's brilliant run on Black Panther, where he married the two. And this was such an important event that T'Challa and Storm went on a world tour. They appeared in Fantastic Four, written by Hickman, and took over for Reed and Sue, who went off. I don't know. I don't recall why they went off, but they went off. And T'Challa and Storm took the place of Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman in the Fantastic Four book. We're talking about a cross issue storyline. So, this is how important their relationship was in Marvel that it crossed issues. Now, we already discussed how T'Challa and Storm were inexplicably broken up in Avengers versus X-Men. Ta-Nehisi Coates, who wrote volume 6 and 7, I want to say, of Black Panther, as bad as that run was, he slowly brought them together to organically make their love and romance flourish again. But back over in the X book, Sword of X storyline, which was a X title cross issue storyline, once again, the X writers, for whatever reason, tried to break up Storm and T'Challa. It's almost as if the head honchos at Marvel don't want to see Black love flourish, and it is very, very frustrating.
It is very frustrating, and I'm still bitter about that. Um, Real quick, this book, these two books, Fantastic Four, 607, 608. If you're a Black Panther fan, you have to have these books. This is the storyline in which T'Challa, depowered T'Challa after Doom War, doesn't have his powers anymore, lost the mantle of the Black Panther, lost his kingship. Shuri becomes the new Black Panther, becomes Queen of Wakanda. He wants his mojo back. But his sister is Queen of Wakanda and she has the Black Panther power. But he wants it back. Not to necessarily take it away from her, but kind of. I mean, so he goes to Bast in the City of the Dead, in Necropolis, in Wakanda. This is really well written. I mean, Jonathan Hickman, he's one of those guys that I would trust with T'Challa because his new Avengers run, it's really a Black Panther run. It really, it's Black Panther and the Avengers. I don't, you can, I'll argue you down all day on that. That new Avengers run is really Black Panther, the Avengers. He gave T'Challa some really badass moments. You see T'Challa meet Bast. For you spec people who are like, oh no, Bast is going to show up in Thor. I need to buy all the Bast books that are relevant to Black Panther. This is one of those books. Because he's having this conversation with Bast. That's her there. He's with Reed Richards. Another important little side note overlooked in this book. Bast has a conversation with Reed Richards. She's like, why is the white boy here? She refers to him as the Northman. You have brought a Northman here to the Hidden City, child. Who are you that you would stand in these halls of the great heroes, stranger? What makes you worthy? He says, I'm worthy because of loyalty. I'm Reed Richards. I'm here as T'Challa second. The man is my brother, and I stand where he stands. So look at this panel right here. She says, come up to me. I want to talk to you. And she goes to him. She whispers in his ear, know that this will create a connection between the two of you, unseverable, unbreakable. What happens today ties your fates together until the day you die. I will permit you to leave if you wish. Go now. If there's any doubt in your heart. And he's like, no, I'm staying. It's my boy. Remember those words. She's like, I gave you an out. Now you're tied to T'Challa for all time. So at the end of the story, after he gets the powers of the Black Panther, he becomes the king of the dead, which is a very powerful position. She tells him, listen to me, Reed Richards. It was no mistake you being here. A bond was forged here, and now the two of you are linked. Your fates are intertwined. What was started here today can only be severed by death, and maybe not even then. Dark days lie ahead. Face them together. And there's foreshadowing about the dark days, right? Let me show you. Right here. What do you see there? You see waves crashing over Wakanda. This is an allusion to what happens in Avengers versus X-Men, in which Namor, a Phoenix-powered Namor, destroys Wakanda with a wave. And that is the direct causation of T'Challa breaking up the Storm and annulling their marriage. So Hickman wrote all this stuff out ahead of time. Really dope issue. You got to own this as part of your collection. Comments. Let's go to comments. I haven't done these comments here. Behind the scenes says, watch out for the antagonist whenever their show gets made, but at least Ridley is continuing to mend T'Challa and Storm's divorce wounds.
Yes.
He is, but
he's setting it up without spoilers that Storm will have attitude with T'Challa.
Attitude is an understatement. He blatantly undermined her authority. And
no spoilers, but yes, he's setting it up that they will have conflict in the future.
Yes, that's exactly. And that gives me pause. He also says they hardly give Cyborg any relationships. Vision is hogging all the booty for robots.
For the record, Cyborg is not a robot. He is literally a cyborg.
And he's in
I
DC.
question whether or not he has the biological parts to do anything with anybody. And I'm a huge Teen Titans fan, and I've been collecting Teen Titans for an extremely long time. There's only been one person that I recall that Cyborg was romantically linked to, and that was some white chick back in the 1980s. I don't know.
That's not true. He had a black chick.
As I said, the only woman that I remember is a white chick that he was romantically interested in or linked to in the 80s. If there were other women, that's fine. I'm not aware of them. That's the one that I remember.
He's had some others. He had some in Tales of the Teen Titans. In his own runs in Cyborg Volume 2, not only did they give him a new body, basically, that could morph, kind of like nanotech, so he looks more human, and they took out all the sharp edges and made it just look, his suit looks more like a bodysuit, like, spandex, a silvery spandex. Kind of like if you watch the show Doom Patrol, it's a lot more like that. He can actually feel. So
what are the comments? What are the comments?
Behind the scenes, Marauders 13 is the gift that keeps on giving. I'm going to skip that comment, and I may delete behind the scene from making further comments. My variants from Marauders 13 that I picked up this week are fire. That's Otis. Otis found a variant from Marauders 13 that I have not seen before. And if I did, I would certainly buy it. It's got Storm on the cover with the Stormbreaker sword. It's a dope cover. And, shout out to you, O, for finding that, man. If you had two, you should have bought one for a brother, because I would have liked that. Doom War behind the scenes says Doom War should have been the third Black Panther movie.
Actually, I will
I
disagree
would
in
disagree. It
this
should have been
because
number
of the
two.
fact that Chadwick Boseman, God rest his soul, died. They, the producers and directors and writers of the Black Panther franchise, should have morphed that storyline and made T'Challa injured so that we could explain the absence of Chadwick Boseman, have Shuri take front and center as both Black Panther and leader of Wakanda, and at the end of the movie, as either at the end or an after credit scene, have the new actor take over as T'Challa. Um, but but for Chadwick's death, yes, I would agree with you. But since we know he died, I would say that part of that should have been in movie two. But yes, it
Yeah,
should be
it's
brought
it's
to the screen.
it's interesting. Let me show you guys something. Let me show the cover of this is Black Panther Volume 5, Number 2B. This is a variant cover. I want to show you guys. And it summarizes how they could have done Black Panther 2 without Chadwick Boseman and explained everything.
Since Chadwick's death, Paul and I have been in communication about this and
Look at this cover.
Black Panther.
Look at this variant cover. This is Black Panther Volume 5, Issue Number 2. This is the variant cover.
Never seen it.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. I only saw this last year for the first time, and I never even knew this cover existed. So
Yeah.
I went out and bought it. But this summarizes what happens inside the story of the book, in which T'Challa is burnt to a crisp um, after he is attacked by Doctor Doom, and his skyship crashes in Wakanda. He's all burnt up. The Dora Milaje is like my king. He's stuck in there. He's all burnt. Look at him. He's in a stasis chamber, like a Bacta tank, if you're a Star Wars person, in which they're trying to heal him. He's all burnt up. You could have, if you read this volume of Black Panther, um, it starts out with Shuri in Wakanda with Queen Ramonda with Storm. They're having a celebration. They see this T'Challa's Talon ship fighter crashing. It's on flames and it crashes into Wakanda, and he's burnt up. And like, what happened? He went to visit Doom. He's all jacked up. Storm's like, I have to take care of my husband. And sure, you'll handle business. Become the new Black Panther. There you go.
End of
No
day,
actor
that makes
on
perfect
screen.
sense.
You could have explained everything. Shuri takes on the mantle. She goes through her trial. She becomes Black Panther. She goes after Namor. She goes after Doctor Doom. That's your whole this volume number 5 is Black Panther 2.
The problem, though, is that in Black Panther 1 in the movie, they cured Everett Ross extremely quickly. That would be somewhat of an inconsistency as to why Everett Ross can get cured in a day versus why T'Challa has to take a week or longer, or however long it is, for himself to get fixed. But outside of that, there was a blueprint for explaining the absence of T'Challa and putting Shuri front and center.
Yeah.
And they, the producers and head honchos over at Marvel Studios, seem to have made the decision not to attempt to replace Chadwick Boseman, which I quite frankly feel that they should do. So anyway,
Well, we'll see what happens in the movie. I don't know what's going to
no, I
happen.
won't. I'm boycotting Black Panther 2. I have no
That's
desire to see
stupid.
it.
That's absolutely stupid.
No, it's not stupid
It
because
is. It's absolutely stupid because you don't know what the plot's going to
I
be. You haven't seen the
understand that I
trailer.
don't know what the plot is,
You don't know
but
the plot.
they are
You haven't
not
seen the
going to
trailer.
get my money if there is not a T'Challa. That is not stupid. I'm expressing to them that I want T'Challa in a Black Panther movie.
And
The
you'll
only reason
prevent
why
further
we have a
advancement.
Black Panther is because of T'Challa. Okay, they're
Yeah.
not going to get my money. If people sit up here and say, "Oh yeah, there's a spoiler where T'Challa appears at the end," okay, yeah. But if T'Challa is not in Black Panther, they're not going to get my money. Just like if there's not a Tony Stark in an Iron Man movie, no, you're going to have an Ironheart movie. Okay, fine, that's fine. But don't call it Iron Man. Don't call it Black Panther if there's not a T'Challa. That's not stupid. I'm expressing my displeasure at them not recasting this role.
That's stupid.
To you. You want to give them your money? Fine, do so. I'm not going to watch this shit.
I think calling for a boycott of a movie that you haven't, no idea what the plot is, you haven't even seen the
They've not
trailer.
recast T'Challa.
Let me
That's
finish.
what I know.
I let you rant for 30 seconds. Give me a second. Boycotting a movie that you don't know what the plot is, you don't know. They may very. What if they actually do what I just suggested and do this Doom War storyline?
Then it will come out
Because they have an actor who they said that may very well be playing Namor. They could very well do this storyline.
If they
And
do
bring
that
him back
storyline,
into
other people will tell me, and then they will get my money. But
all right.
if
So
they
so
don't,
saying fine, but saying now I'm going to boycott a movie you don't even know the movie's about. That's
unless and
stupid.
until we know that T'Challa will go forward in the MCU,
That's just
we don't know.
that's just making
No,
noise for that's making noise for no reason.
no, it's
Because
not,
you don't
because
know what
they've
the movie's
said
about.
Kevin Feige and Nate Moore have already said that T'Challa is not going to be recast. They've said that. They've
Right.
articulated that.
And then
out loud in
I'm very
person.
aware of what they said. I watched it. Nate Moore also
Exactly.
said he also said we're not going to bring him back in this current form or something to that effect, which leaves open the possibility of variants, multiverse. We have a Doctor Strange movie, a whole bunch of characters going to be
If
introduced.
that comes out as the movies are released or comes closer, then yes. But the information that we have now is that they, the head honchos at Marvel Studios, have said they are not recasting T'Challa.
Oh my god!
If they are not recasting T'Challa, they are not getting my money.
Your logic is literally the absence of evidence is the evidence of
That's
absence.
bullshit. Absolutely not.
That's absolutely.
They have given us information. They
You're
have
making
said
a decision based on lack of information.
Have they or have
That's
they not
stupid.
said they are not recasting T'Challa? Yes or no?
They've said that they're not recasting T'Challa.
Stop. They said they've not recasting T'Challa. Yes.
They said we were not recast T'Challa in his present form.
That's adding more. They said
that is what they did. They added more. That's what everyone's not getting. Nate Moore just said we're not casting T'Challa. They didn't just leave it at that. Listen to the entire interview, and he says he's not coming back in his present form. Those aren't the exact words that he said, but he said something to that effect.
I'm gonna have to re-look because
listen to the interview. Don't take my word for it. Listen to the interview.
T'Challa. And if they are not recasting T'Challa, they will not get my money. Period.
Well, fine. Then
if they
you should be saying you should be saying no T'Challa, no my money.
That's what I just said.
No, you said I'm boycotting Black Panther 2.
Yes, because
not even knowing whether or not T'Challa will ever be brought back.
They are not recasting T'Challa. If they are not recasting T'Challa, they will not get my money.
So if they do the Doom War, by that logic, if they do the Doom War storyline, where T'Challa is not in the story at all, but Shuri becomes the Black Panther, but he has not been killed off in the story. He's not been killed off in the story. They're not, by that ridiculously stupid logic, you're not going to give them your money. Because that's literally the Doom War storyline that I just explained. T'Challa doesn't have to be in the film at all. You see a flaming ship that crashes and a body inside a wreckage. That's why I'm pointing out that you're jumping the gun on that. At least see the trailer, and then I'll be right there with you saying, no, they're not getting my money.
If they do not recast T'Challa, if they kill off the character of T'Challa, they will not get my money. We will know this. I'm basing my position on what has been said, and what has been said is that they are not recasting T'Challa.
What would irritate me is, and I agree with Emmanuel Morissette, E-Man, on this. If Marvel chooses to incorporate Chadwick Boseman's death in the film as like a plot device, that would irritate me. Because you are not only killing the hero of children, it's very important to.
Fuck them
Um,
kids. I'm talking about me and adults and those of us who've been
you're
reading
not only
comic books
killing
for
their
years.
superhero. You're not only killing their superhero in Chadwick Boseman, who is a real life superhero. They already dealt with that trauma, but then to actually see that that carries over to film is unwarranted, unnecessary, and you're making money off the man's death. That's unsavory. So with that, I agree with that. But it is perfectly possible for them to make a Black Panther 2 without recasting T'Challa. That's the point I'm trying to make.
I understand.
If they use the Doom War storyline. My preference actually is that they don't do anything with the current characters and they actually do a flashback movie of old Wakanda. That would be
Yeah,
a dope
they're
story.
not doing that though.
I know. I'm saying that would have been my preference for a new
Yeah,
movie.
I don't want to see that either. All of
Hopefully
those.
they'll make that the Wakanda Forever series.
Here's the thing: the beauty of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as you well know, is that all of these storylines are tied into each other. Professor the Film Fam said, to be fair, the MCU has always given us a teaser of footage of their films. Wakanda Forever hasn't given anything yet. That makes me a little nervous. I won't go that far, Profess, simply because they've had to stop production several times due to injury and COVID. So they are still filming like right now, today, February 11th or whatever it is,
Did you
2022.
get on set?
So
It's
I
right in
won't
your
sit up
town. Did you
here
go on site?
I won't sit up here and say that that is a cause for concern. If we get towards the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, and they're not releasing stuff, okay, yeah, but not now because there's probably not a lot of stuff in the can right now because the star as produced, as presented right now is Letitia Wright, who's set apparently to take over that mantle. As an aside, um, Winston Duke, aka M'Baku, there are stories that are saying that he is expected to take on an expanded role. What people need to understand, and I see this a lot, people are sitting up here saying that M'Baku should take on the role as Black Panther.
You can't.
M'Baku cannot be Black Panther. He can be the leader or ruler or king of Wakanda, yes, but he cannot be Black Panther because he does not worship Bast or the Panther god. He worships the ape god Hanuman, or however you pronounce it. That's the equivalent of suggesting that a Muslim or a Hindu be Pope. No, a Pope is Catholic. To be the Black Panther, you have to worship Bast. And M'Baku does not do that. So, for those of you who are watching who don't understand this concept, just understand you cannot have a Muslim be Pope. You cannot have somebody who worships the monkey god be Black Panther. He can be king and still hold true to his faith, which is a religion, but he cannot be the Black Panther. And a lot of people don't really understand that. What are the comments are there?
Let me point out something. Um, in what comic was that? It was in. Was it? M'Baku was introduced in Avengers
Way
82.
early on, like 56 or something like that. It was a long time ago.
Oh, what was it?
Make your point and I'll
62.
look it up.
62. Let's pull that up. Avengers 62, if I'm not mistaken. Right. Yeah, it was 62. All right. So let me show you guys this. So in Avengers 62, which is this issue, you don't
And that
own
was
this.
reprinted in one of the Marvel 2-in-1s or something like that.
What?
This storyline in this Avengers was reproduced in like a Marvel Spotlight or whatever. That was my first introduction to Black Panther and M'Baku, because I don't have this Avengers, but this identical story was represented in a Marvel
Oh,
title,
probably Marvel Super Action.
something like that. That sounds, yeah.
So T'Challa left Wakanda to go be an Avenger. He
You don't have to.
left.
You don't have to read all the panels, but just
I'm not reading all the panels. I'm just showing this one panel. T'Challa left Wakanda to become an Avenger. Wakanda needs a leader. He left M'Baku, who he considered his boy, in charge. He left him as a regent of Wakanda. He says, go tell him the chieftain has returned. Here's M'Baku on the throne. He says, long weary months have I played chieftain of the Wakandas for friendship's sake. Gladly shall I lay down the staff of supremacy and become once more but first among Wakanda's warriors. So M'Baku has been leader of Wakanda. But that was under the auspices of friendship. But he was kind of plotting to take over and try to, read the book.
And he was always the man ape, or his own.
Right. That's the point I'm trying to make is what you just said. M'Baku can't be Black Panther because he worships a different god.
Right.
When you see him on the throne, he doesn't give up his god. He's leader of Wakanda, but he still worships the ape god.
That Avengers issue was issue what now?
62.
Okay. That might be priced out of some people's range of wanting to spend on a comic book. But Marvel Super Action Volume 2, number 23, is where that story was reproduced in its entirety. That was one of the first, probably 20, 30 comic books I ever bought. That was my first introduction to that storyline and those characters. So you may have an easier road to hoe if you try to locate Marvel Super Action number 23 versus trying to find Avengers Volume 1, number 62. So just something to think about.
Derek says, is this the quote you recall, Paul? Will not see T'Challa in the MCU 616 universe. It wasn't the MCU 61. That's not exactly how they phrased it. Will not see T'Challa in, and then they said something after that, like in his present form or in this particular universe. They said some comment like that. But it wasn't MCU 616 universe because the MCU is not the 616 universe. It was something along those lines. Rico says, thanks for breaking that down, bro. I can't stand it when I hear people say M'Baku should be Black Panther, but that makes zero sense. Leading Wakanda and becoming Black Panther is completely different.
And that is exactly right. To piggyback on this, when you are in Wakanda, there is a spiritual aspect and there is a political aspect. It just so happens that the Black Panther is both Pope and President, because a lot of
and head of the armed forces, like warrior, head warrior.
Well, the president is in charge of the armed forces.
No, I meant head warrior, like they're superhero, like they're
right. So in Wakanda, the leader, the Black Panther, the mantle of the Black Panther is their spiritual leader. He is their political leader, and he is their warrior champion. Okay.
Yeah,
if M'Baku took over as the leader of Wakanda, he will not be their spiritual leader. He can be their political leader, and he can be their chief warrior, but he won't be their spiritual leader unless he forces everybody to convert to worship the ape god. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because people forget Wakanda is made up of various tribes.
Right.
Whatever tribe takes over, that's what's controlling everything.
But a lot of the tribes, though, still worship Bass.
A lot of them worship
that the M'Baku and his tribe are unique in that they worship the monkey god.
Right. It's think of it in America as most of our U.S. presidents are like Christians, right? But we have other faiths in this country. So let's say a Muslim becomes president of the United States. Does that mean the rest of the country become converts to Islam? No. Um, but that Muslim president may celebrate his faith within the White House, but he's not going to convert everyone else in the country to become Muslim, as an
Back in the
example.
60s, people, I know probably a lot of people are young, but back in the 60s, there was a push against John F. Kennedy being president because he was a Catholic.
Right.
And Americans were afraid at that time that as a Catholic, American President John F. Kennedy would be taking his lead and role from a pope over in Italy versus doing what's in the best interest of Americans. So
Like
it's
this is
kind of
Victorian
this
England or
disconnect thing.
something.
Yeah.
Rico says, actually, I think Derek is right. I believe Nate Moore did say 616. Well, Nate Moore, you're wrong because the only 616 is the comic books.
Well, yes, but
And the MCU is based on the 1610, the Ultimate Universe, technically. Yeah.
if you can find that article, we may want to bring that up so we can all hear exactly what it says.
Yeah.
What other comments are there?
That's it. That was the last one.
See if you can find that. See if you can find that interview so we can
Man,
all hear exactly
go
what
look
he
it up
said.
on your phone, bro. All right, let me see if I can find it.
But I'm firm in my stance that if T'Challa is killed off in the MCU and or T'Challa does not make an appearance in Black Panther 2, I have no interest in seeing it whatsoever. And my position is based on what Nate Moore said.
Derek was right. He said, "You will not see T'Challa in the MCU 616 universe," said Nate Moore, Marvel's vice president of development. We couldn't do it. That was November 17th, 2021. So that last part, he initially Marvel screwed up. And he said, "We're not recasting T'Challa." It was like a knee jerk emotional reaction, which was emotional and made no sense. So then Nate Moore, in a subsequent interview on this November 17th date, said, "You will not see T'Challa in the MCU 616 universe."
Now I'm gonna stop. Paul is a lawyer. And what he is doing, what Paul is doing, is trying to say, and I'm not saying that he's wrong or what, but he's trying to find an out. He's trying to find a caveat as to how potentially Black Panther T'Challa could make an appearance. We all know that the MCU is not the 616 universe, which is the main continuity in Marvel. So Paul is trying to find an out and thinking that Nate Moore was surreptitiously announcing that there is a slight window that T'Challa could be reintroduced in some way, shape, or form. I don't think that he was doing that. I think that he was saying, in no uncertain terms, going back to when Chadwick died in 2020, that we will not see T'Challa anymore. That is my thought on that.
I don't
So,
think I would hope that Marvel is not that stupid.
but they said very early on that that character is dead, and I think that Nate, in trying to clarify for the lawyers out there, we're trying to find a loophole. But I think he's just reiterating what went on back in 2020 when Chadwick first died.
Well, I think it's also looking the fact that Nate Moore and the upper echelons and Kevin Feige, they know the big picture of what's coming. And I say this all the time. Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness is going to change the entire MCU. I dead ass mean that because they're going to introduce the multiverse. I mean, the multiverse has already been introduced. They're going to expand upon the multiverse. And I suspect that what's going to happen is they're going to, in essence, reboot the MCU with that film. And for all intents and purposes, if that happens, Nate Moore is absolutely right. You will not see T'Challa in the MCU 616 universe because the entire MCU is going to be rebooted. And that will allow characters like the X-Men, Fantastic Four, etc., to be introduced. I think that's the long-term plan. That's the Phase 5 plan.
But
And
as I've consistently said, because T'Challa is not dead in the MCU, there's no need whatsoever for variants. There's no need for a multi-universal approach to this situation because T'Challa is not dead.
I
And
don't disagree with you.
no,
I
I
don't
understand
disagree.
that. But an actor in the real world is dead, and it is quite simple to recast that actor.
Yeah.
They've done it across the board. They recast Rhodey. They recast oh
There's
my
there's no excuse. There's no excuse for killing T'Challa in the
there's
movies.
no
Period.
excuse to kill T'Challa in the MCU because an actor has died.
Right. Right. And you're really capitalizing on that death, which is a damn travesty. Um, which is there's just no excuse for that. And
And
that
so
would that would be that would be one of the few and probably largest misstep Kevin Feige has ever done, if that's what he does. The
and you know,
first,
based on that information is why I've taken the stringent stance that I have, unless and until they say, hey, you know, we've got this person playing the role or whatever. But I'm accepting them at their word, not trying to read more into what was there. You know, they've said they've not recasting the role. That's what I'm accepting. And based on that, I have no desire or plans to spend my money on this movie. I'm just not. I want to see a Black Panther story that involves T'Challa. So it's that simple for me.
I feel you. Well, folks, we've been on here for 2.5 hours or so. We appreciate you all listening to us rant and rave. Look, there's no like organized thing what me and Mark do. Mark and I have been friends for how long? 25 years?
28,
28 years. This is just us talking like we do every week, regardless.
26. I'm sorry, 26.
If we weren't here, we'd just be talking on the phone, having the same conversation, drinking liquor, talking comics. So appreciate you spending this time with us. Um, thank you. Thank you. And I mean that just not just for us, but on behalf of all the Black comic lords, we appreciate all you guys out there because this space is really special. And if you guys, and I know a lot of you guys realize that, um, and we have some things that we plan on doing over the coming not too far future that we'll hope will make you guys happy. So bless up, Mark. Later, bro.
All right, then. See y'all later. Thanks for
All right.
joining.
Peace.